Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 10 of What If the Transformers crash landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. What is evil? The battle at Port Yokosuka had ended only a few hours ago and it was just barely dawn. All Britannian, Decepticon, Black Knight, and Autobot forces had retreated and there was only rubble everywhere, save for the maze of cargo containers. However, it wasn't completely abandoned as a single ambulance drove quietly through the maze with Ogi in the driver's seat and Tamaki in the passenger seat. Tamaki gave a huge yawn. It's way too early for this, I don't even know why we're here again. Come on Tamaki, you heard Zero. Ogi told him. Someone might have seen his face, so we're here to find that person. From what Bumblebee has described, it was a woman, a Britannian though he didn't appear to have a clear look at her face. Ratchet informed as he continued to drive. Didn't B say he shot her though? Tamaki questioned. If nightmares are blown away when bots shoot them, what are the odds some random Britannian bitch is actually gonna survive that? We can't afford to leave any loose ends, Tamaki. Ratchet explained. If there's a possibility this woman learned of Zero's identity we need to understand how. If there are others working with her, possibly even the Decepticons, it could have disastrous effects for us in the future. Yeah, I get it. Tamaki grumbled. Just wish I had a coffee. He muttered the last part. Ogi looked out the window, he still found it hard to believe. Zero was not only a Britannian but a kid who looked around Colin's age. It was no wonder he had to hide his face, but he honestly would have never guessed it. However, whatever the reason he had for fighting Britannia and the Decepticons, he knew it was genuine. He saw the look in his eyes, his rage is real, and someone who understands rage also knows sorrow. Whoever Zero was, Ogi trusted him, he would even follow him into hell if he had to. However, there was also something else on Ogi's mind that he felt he had to ask. Hey Ratchet, sorry for asking this but, what exactly happened to Bumblebee's voice? Ogi asked. Yeah, I've been wondering that myself. Tamaki also said. You and the other bots speak just fine, but he only speaks in bleep. Ratchet paused a moment before answering. His voice box was, severely damaged in battle. How? Ogi asked. How do you think? Tragically of course. Ratchet began. It happened during the war for Cybertron, at Tiger Pax. Our brave scout was captured by Megatron's forces and interrogated, but he refused to provide intel, and paid a grave price for his courage. Ogi and even Tamaki winced slightly, having a good idea what Ratchet meant as Ogi instinctively held his own throat. Bumblebee was left for scrap, but Autobot troops found him and evacuated him to a triage facility. I was there, I did all I could to save his life. And while I did I couldn't repair his voice box. Even Tamaki looked rather sympathetic as he had nothing to say. Ogi however did. Well, you still saved his life. It's thanks to you he's still with us today, so, I'd say you did good. I appreciate that Ogi, I do. Ratchet acknowledged truthfully. But, I feel as though, I could have done better. Before this could continue, Tamaki glanced out the passenger's window and spotted something that caused him to look in surprise. Hey Doc Bot, pull over. Ratchet did just that. Tamaki was the first to step out of the ambulance, followed by Ogi before Ratchet transformed into his natural Cybertronian form. They looked in surprise at the ground as they found the body of Valletta lying flat. There was some blood coming from her back, and one could see even severe burn marks on not just her back, but the back of her legs and even her elbows. Think she's who we're looking for? Ogi wondered. She's a woman and a Britannian, so yeah I'd say so. Tamaki assumed. She dead. Ratchet performed a quick scan to measure her vitals. She's alive, Barley. Is it possible to save her though? Ogi asked. Never thought I'd hear those words coming from you Ogi. Tamaki said in honest surprise. Tamaki, you know why. We need to know if she tracked Zero. Ogi said immediately. Ratchet transformed back into his ambulance form and opened his back door. Put her inside. Ogi and a reluctant Tamaki picked up the barley living Valletta and pulled her into Ratchet's vehicle form before he drove off. Ashford Academy. It was still incredibly early, but Shirley hadn't slept at all since she came back from Port Yokosuka. She sat at her desk in her personal dormitory and appeared to be writing some kind of note, while still having the same pistol she got from Zero. No, the one she got from Lelouch in front of her. Her thoughts were in such a jumble, the only thing she could do was shed tears as she crushed the note in her hand and threw it away. Surely. She gave a small gasp as she quickly hid the gun away as her roommate woke up. What are you doing up so early? Is that a letter? Oh, it's nothing. Shirley lied as she tried to hold back her tears as to not worry her roommate. I bet it's a love letter, huh? Something special for Lelouch, her roommate teased. Shirley did her best to hide the pained look on her face. In a way. Later in the afternoon, student council room. You wanna meet Princess Euphemia? Suzaku questioned in surprise as he, Rivals, and Millie sat on the couch while Nunnally was next to them as well as they looked to Nina in surprise. To thank her, Nina stuttered. I just wanted to thank her. Rai stood up for Nina during the hotel jacking, but when those terrorists were gonna shoot him for it, she stood up and said, I'm Princess Euphemia. Millie explained as Nina had a small blush on her cheeks. Really? Suzaku was a bit surprised. I'd want to meet her too. Rivals said excitedly. Why is that? Millie questioned. She's a real princess. I can marry into royalty. Rivals exclaimed with a wide grin, causing Millie to look unimpressed. I'm sure you'll never meet her with such impure motives. Nunnally said rather bluntly. Impure? Rivals hung his head in disappointment. That's a little harsh, isn't it Nunnally? He immediately turned to Millie. You're on my side, aren't you Madame Prez? He was about to lean his head on her lap, but she pushed his face back with a rolled-up magazine. Don't kiss up to me just because Lelouch isn't hanging around. Millie commented. Nunnally saw right through you and so do I. Nunnally giggled slightly. Anyway, I'd like to meet Princess Euphemia if I could. That especially caught Suzaku and Millie's attention. They were aware of the fact Euphemia was their half-sister, but at the same time, they knew the danger that could happen if something like that was arranged. Even though she was blind, Nunnally could almost sense something on Suzaku's mind. Oh, what's the matter Suzaku? Suzaku winced slightly. Oh it's just, she's a member of the royal family and, the phone suddenly rang, and Suzaku was the one to answer. Hello. Ashford Academy Student Council. Suzaku. Lelouch asked on the other line with some hesitation. Lelouch. Suzaku was happy to hear his voice, which also caught Nunnally's attention. However, no one appeared to notice Arthur underneath the coffee table reaching his paw out at the phone cord. Is Shirley there? Shirley. No, she's not. Suzaku answered. In fact, I haven't seen her at all today, like she never even came to class. In fact, I haven't even seen Colin or Rai today either. Lelouch didn't respond, something that made Suzaku concerned. Hey, you still there? Yeah, I'm still here. Lelouch replied. Listen, something's going on and I'm going to be home late tonight. If it's not too much trouble, can you stay with Nunnally please? Yeah, I don't see a problem with it but, Lelouch you've been cutting classes pretty frequently. Suzaku said. If something's wrong I can help. Don't worry, I've got plenty of help. And thanks. No problem Suzaku almost lost his grip on the phone as Arthur pulled down on the cord. Hey Arthur. Put that down. The Ark. Lelouch heard Suzaku's struggles as the line was disconnected, likely the cat causing trouble again. Lelouch, still clad in his Zero outfit, just without his helmet, hung back against a wall in the hallway of the Ark as he gave a sigh. So, Bumblebee was right, Shirley did see him at Yokosuka. His hand shook for a moment before he calmed himself and put his Zero mask back on. Right now, there was something that needed his immediate attention. Zero turned a corner and came towards the med bay with Ratchet standing just outside as this specific med bay was for humans and he was too large to fit, they'd probably have to fix that later but that can wait. Zero glanced up to Ratchet who gave a nod. Zero walked into the med bay where Ogi, Tamaki, and Fix-It were waiting. In one bed was Valletta, who was hooked up to machines to measure her heart rate and other vitals, along with an oxygen mask over her mouth. This is her? Zero asked. Yeah, we didn't find anyone else at the port. Ogi answered. Her condition has been stable, so she'll live. Fix-It reported. However, it may be some time before she wakes up. He glitched. Tamaki gave a slight scoff. A human who actually survived being shot by an Autobot. Well she's tough, I'll give her that. Who is she? Zero asked. I looked up her information. Fix-It began as he pulled up her info on his own tablet device. Valletta knew, she's a member of the Pureblood faction. However, given all our recent activities, she may very well be the last of the Purebloods. Tamaki smirked. Serves them right. Keep monitoring her, the second she wakes up let me know. Zero told them. Right, don't worry, we'll keep you informed. Ogi assured as Zero quickly turned around and left. The bridge. Zero walked onto the bridge, taking off his mask as he saw Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, Cliffjumper, and Bulkhead all waiting for him, while Colin, CC, and Rai climbed down onto the floor from the lounge area to meet him. Where's everyone else? He asked. Ironhide and Wheeljack are assisting the JLF in delivering more nightmares from Kyoto to the Ark. Optimus responded. Katace seemed quite elated now that the Japan Liberation Front has been integrated into the Black Knights. Almost all of them, Bulkhead said. No sign of that Toto and those Holy Sword guys yet. Lelouch said nothing but nodded in response. He would be lying to say if he wasn't worried a bit for Toto. He was one of the few people he had respect for, and he would be an excellent addition to the Origination, that is if Britannia or the Decepticons didn't find him first. So, our suspect has been found? CC asked. Lelouch nodded. A pureblood, the last one. Her condition is stable, but we don't know when she'll wake up. But if she's the last one, it's not like she has any partners helping her then. Cliffjumper said. What about the Decepticons? RC wondered. Doubt it. Colin stated. They're called the Purebloods for a reason, meaning they hated pretty much anyone who's not a Britannian. The odds that one of them forsaking their pride and seeking alien help is pretty low. Lelouch agreed. So, when she wakes up, you'll use your Geass on her, right? Rai asked. That's not an option anymore. Lelouch informed. I already used it on her back in Shinjuku, that's how I was able to get a Sutherland, in fact that might be how she became suspicious of me. Huh, I was wondering how you got that. Colin thought. It's true. I saw him use it on her back then. Bumblebee confirmed. So, what do we do with her? Bulkhead asked. I feel that it may be best that we keep her in our custody. Optimus said. Until we know of how she was able to suspect Lelouch, we should keep a very close eye on her. Well, that solves one of our problems, but what about the other one? CC wondered. You mean Shirley? Lelouch got right to the point. So, she did see your face. Colin said with a serious expression, knowing that this could turn into a big problem if they didn't deal with it soon. Yeah, she did. She might have also found out I'm his car since I transformed when I got her out of there. Bumblebee added. I just called Suzaku and she wasn't even at school today. Lelouch informed. We need to find her, as soon as possible. Yes, that is obvious. But what are you going to do if you find her? RC questioned. In her eyes, you're the same person who killed her father, so I don't know if she'd be willing to listen to you. I know I wouldn't. Just kill her and be done with it. CC said rather bluntly, causing every person and Autobot present to look at her in surprise, even Optimus was stunned. No way. Rai exclaimed immediately. We're not gonna do that. We don't kill innocent people. He's right, didn't you get the memo? Bulkhead said with a glare in CC's direction. We're not the cons. Well, if that's the case, then just have Lelouch use his Geass on her and simply make her forget. Problem solved. CC pointed out as Lelouch's own eyes widened slightly before he looked away with a conflicted look on his face. How about, instead of doing that, maybe we bring her here? Rai suggested. And show her that we're not the bad guys. I don't see a problem with that. Cliffjumper seemed to agree. I mean, we do have some Britannian citizens voicing their support for us. Really? RC questioned unceremoniously. Bring a traumatized schoolgirl into an alien ship filled with giant alien robots and armed soldiers. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with RC on this. Colin agreed. It might be too much for her to handle at once. Especially considering she was literally in a war zone and 5 feet away from Starscream last night. Bumblebee added. Optimus noticed the conflicted look on Lelouch's face and seemed to understand what he was feeling. One thing remains certain, we must find this girl, if only to ensure her safety. This got everyone's attention. If she truly was present at our battle last night, There is also a possibility that the Britannian military or even the Decepticons have noticed her as well, and they may potentially target her. Lelouch, you must find her, and I feel it is best that Colin and Rye accompany you. Us? Colin asked. So far as we know, she doesn't know you two are involved in the Black Knights. Optimus explained. Therefore, you may help to mentally ease her, and she'd be more willing to listen to Lelouch. Yeah, makes sense. Rye seemed to get it. Alright, let's go. Lelouch looked to Bumblebee, who gave a nod before transforming into his vehicle mode. I'm coming too, CC said as she walked to join them. Seriously, why do you wanna come? It's not like she knows you. Colin stated with a slight narrow in her eyes. I'm coming to help ensure Lelouch's safety as he is my contractor. CC replied. That's not necessary, I've got an Autobot with me. Lelouch replied as Bumblebee gave a honk on his horn for emphasis. I'm still going with you. CC insisted. Lelouch sighed as Rye spoke next. Alright, we don't really have time for this. But, he glared slightly at CC. If you do anything to hurt Shirley, I'll be the first one you answer to. Noted. CC nodded as all four humans got inside Bumblebee and he drove off. RC shook her head with a sigh. I'm starting to have second thoughts about CC staying here. Well, I mean, it's not like she can do anything that can actually hurt us. Bulkhead pointed out. I'm not so sure about that. RC contradicted. She was able to give Bumblebee visions, so it looks like this Geass stuff can affect Cybertronians. B also said that girl went through some pretty intense stuff. Cliffjumper said. She's lived much longer than most humans, and if I'd live for so long and go through the same kind of stuff that she went through, I don't know what I'd do. I agree that CC is a rather interesting individual. Optimus put it pretty mildly. But that is all the more reason to keep her with us, so that we may keep a close eye on her. I understand that, but I just can't help get this feeling that she's hiding something. RC commented as she glanced in the direction Bumblebee drove off with the other humans, including CC. Area 11 Viceroy Royal Palace. Cornelia sat in her own personal throne with Yuffie sitting on a throne right next to her as Darlton and Guilford stood in front to give a report. Dreadwing was also present as the throne room itself was large enough for him to stand in. Though Cornelia wasn't too comfortable with it, she could safely say that Dreadwing was pretty much the only Decepticon that didn't drive her up the wall. In this last operation, and also at Narita, the enemy was specifically targeting you, Your Highness. Darlton spoke to Cornelia. Eliminating the enemy leader is a standard tactic. Cornelia responded. They also eliminated Prince Clovis. Guilford added. Zero is not merely fighting Britannia, he and the Autobots are targeting the royal family and they want blood. I disagree. Dreadwing said immediately. If that were the case, Zero would have eliminated Princess Euphemia during the hotel jacking. He would have been smart enough to recognize her back then, but instead of executing her or holding her hostage he let her go with the other civilians. Yuffie instantly recalled her meeting Zero during that same event. He felt so familiar to her, and yet whenever she even thought about him, a great sadness filled her heart, but it wasn't just because of the fact he killed Clovis. What exactly are you saying, Dreadwing? Cornelia narrowed her eyes slightly in his direction. The Autobots are not bloodthirsty warriors, especially not their leader. Dreadwing explained. Optimus Prime has very strong code of honor, and while he has taken lives before, he never bears his enemy any malice. I've battled him in the past, and he has never once harbored any grudges toward me or any comrades that I might have known. He may be right. Guilford seemed to agree. Not only did he spare you Viceroy during your duel with him, Cornelia narrowed her eyes even further, but still allowed Guilford to speak. But we also discovered that the Narita population had been completely evacuated the day before the operation, but we weren't the ones to order that evacuation. Cornelia looked somewhat confused. Zero and Prime have made enemies of our empire and yet they continue to spare and save our subjects. Because that is who Optimus Prime is. Dreadwing said. He may be my enemy, but he would never endanger the weak. You sound as though you admire him, Dreadwing. Cornelia looked in his direction with a hint of distrust evident in her eyes. I respect him, Dreadwing replied, and it would seem this Zero character may have the same standards as him, hence why they are working together. Cornelia merely sighed before turning to her younger sister. Regardless, I don't want you leaving the settlement until this crisis has been abated. Why not assign a knight to her? Guilford suggested. A knight? Euphemia asked. Yes, if we assign one knight as a permanent sentinel, then we can build a complete royal guard unit around him. Guilford explained. As sub-viceroy, Princess Euphemia has the right to a personal champion. While I don't believe Prime would have a reason to specifically target Princess Euphemia, perhaps I can serve as her guard. Dreadwing proposed, surprising both Euphemia and even Cornelia. Even Darlton and Guilford were a bit surprised themselves. Oh, and just why should I allow that, Dreadwing? Give Megatron a reason to monitor my sister? Cornelia questioned almost spitefully. Lord Megatron did not suggest this, the idea only came to me just now. Dreadwing replied. I trust Princess Euphemia enough to know she will select a warrior capable enough to protect her, but until then I can act as a sentinel myself to ensure her safety. That is, if you would allow me, Princess Euphemia. Dreadwing bowed his head toward the younger princess, who still had a surprised expression on her face. I don't, Cornelia was about to protest, but Euphe had already spoken. It's fine, Euphemia said immediately, surprising her older sister and the two knights present. I don't mind, really. In fact, I would be honored if Dreadwing were to stay by my side. I trust him. She smiled at the Decepticon, who in turn had a small smile of his own. Cornelia could at least admit that Dreadwing was pretty much the only Decepticon she's seen to have something of a code of honor and could see that he didn't have any ulterior motives, unlike Starscream. Alright, if you feel he is capable, I trust your judgment. Cornelia gave her sister the approval she needed, causing Euphe to smile as Dreadwing bowed his head to Euphemia as well. Viceroy, if I may, Darlton spoke up. In speaking of the situation we are facing, forgive me for being blunt, but I feel as though it has gotten out of control. Thanks to the combined efforts of the Autobots and the Black Knights, Area 11's military has suffered substantially. The purebloods have all been wiped out and, Guilford and I are, the last of the Glaston Knights. Guilford, Euphemia, even Cornelia and Dreadwing gave silent yet sympathetic looks towards Darlton as he had lost all 5 of his adopted sons. Darlton pushed his emotions back as he maintained a professional standing. I feel that we may need to contact the homeland to supply reinforcements. Darlton continued. I mean no offense, Dreadwing, but, even with the aid of you and the rest of the Decepticons, it's best that we resolve this as soon as possible before other areas begin to rebel. Perhaps even the Chinese Federation and the EU could attack as well. No offense taken, Dreadwing assured. You are correct, our enemy grows in strength and numbers virtually every day. Darlton, are you suggesting we possibly contact Maribel and her Glinda Knights? Cornelia asked. Actually, I believe we may need to look even higher than that. Darlton said. I believe that we should request for the assistance of the Knights of the Round. Euphe gave a small gasp as Guilford and even Cornelia were surprised at how drastic Darlton was sounding with a suggestion like that. Knights of the Round? Dreadwing asked in confusion. Please forgive my ignorance. The Knights of the Round are Britannia's best nightmare pilots, the strongest and most talented soldiers in the entire empire. Guilford explained. Even more so than Viceroy Cornelia. They are only called in when absolutely necessary. Cornelia said, without voicing a disagreement to Guilford's statement, implying that he wasn't exaggerating. And, as much as I hate to admit it, we could use their help. I've lost to our enemy 3 times already, I'd rather not suffer a 4th humiliation. I see. Dreadwing seemed to understand, it seemed like a logical choice. Now, is there anything else we need to discuss? Cornelia asked her knights, as well as Dreadwing. No, Your Highness. Darlton said, as even Dreadwing shook his head in confirmation. Very well. Cornelia said. I'll contact my father immediately and make the request for the Knights of the Round to join us. She stood up and was about to walk out. Wait, sister, Euphemia cleared her throat before speaking again. Viceroy, there is something I need to discuss with you. Dreadwing, Guilford, Darlton, you too. What is it? Cornelia asked as all 4 of them gave her their undivided attention. Euphemia stood up as she pulled out a file folder she had been carrying with her for some time. For the past few days, there have been rumors throughout the settlement of a monster roaming the ghettos. A monster? Guilford questioned with a raised eyebrow. At first, I thought it was just a rumor, so I requested for the police in the area to investigate. Euphemia explained as her body began to shake. They went into the Saitama ghetto first and, she stuttered. They found this. Her hands continued to shake as she handed the file folder to her older sister. Cornelia noticed how her younger sister was practically quaking, causing her to look confused and concerned. She took the file from her hands and opened it to see its contents. The second she saw it, her eyes widened as she even gave a gasp. She even let go of the folder and allowed all the photos inside to fall to the ground as she covered her mouth with one hand to prevent herself from throwing up. Darlton and Guilford saw the pictures as well and looked absolutely horrified. Even Dreadwing zoomed in with his optics and was beyond appalled. The photos were all of dismembered bodies. Men, women, even children, all of them had been butchered, gutted, skinned alive, organs and blood laying everywhere, as well as severed heads and limbs. It was like something out of a horror film, but since these were photographs of something that actually happened, it made it all the more disturbing. Those rumors, they're true. Something is in the ghettos, Euphemia stuttered as she was the most visibly shaken by this. Something, monstrous. I think we should send our forces to see. No, Cornelia said, causing Euphy to look surprised, even shocked at what her sister just said. Even Guilford and Darlton were rather surprised. Cornelia, has any of this been happening in the settlement or is it only the ghettos? Cornelia asked. Only the ghettos, but, Euphemia answered. Then it's not our problem. Cornelia said, causing Euphy to look even further shocked. I'll admit this is, rather graphic, but, our first priority is to protect our own civilians, not the numbers. She turned around and proceeded to leave the throne room, with her knights reluctantly following her. Besides, since Prime and Zero have such a soft spot for them, I'm sure they can handle it. Cornelia. Euphy tried to call to her, but she had already left the chambers. Euphy just stood there in shock. While she knew that Cornelia held no love for the numbers, but to let them be butchered like this when she clearly can do something to stop it. Princess Euphemia. Dreadwing got her attention. I will look into this. Whatever is causing this in the ghettos, it isn't human. It must be dealt with, and I'll be more than happy to see to it personally. Though the pink-haired princess was indeed grateful for Dreadwing's support, she didn't feel comfortable with him going alone. Dreadwing, thank you, but, please don't take any offense by this. I know you can handle yourself, but, how would you like it if I assigned a partner to join you? Who do you have in mind? Camelot Division. This thing about saving people's lives, Cecile began as Lloyd worked on computer in front of the Lancelot. At first, I thought he was just being, sensitive. But now, with all that's happening, and him joining the Decepticons, it's starting to feel more like an obsession. Lloyd helped himself to a cup of pudding. His performance data is still solid, right? Not to mention him joining up with Megatron might be the best thing that's ever happened to us. I can't wait to get my hands on some Cybertronian goodies. You can't just treat him like he's simply one cog in the machine. We have to deal with the human issue first. Cecile told him. Human issue? What do you mean? Cecile looked in surprise to see Suzaku on the ground, though Lloyd carried his casual smile. Aha, Suzaku, we were just talking about you. So, what brings you back here? You tell me. Suzaku replied as Cecile and Lloyd climbed down to meet him. I got a call from Dreadwing telling me to come here. But, he's not even here. Dreadwing? Cecile asked in surprise. It's been a while since I've last seen him. It wasn't just Dreadwing, Suzaku. All three of them looked to see Princess Euphemia enter the hangar. Though Suzaku and Cecile were beyond surprised, Lloyd had his usual look on his face. PR, Princess Euphemia. Cecile stuttered as she and Suzaku quickly bowed. Please, don't be so formal with me. Euphy raised her hand and allowed them to rise. So, what can we do for the pretty little sub-viceroy of Area 11? Lloyd asked casually. Lloyd, Cecile scolded. Euphemia ignored them and looked directly at the young man in front of her. Suzaku, I have a mission for you. A mission? Suzaku asked in surprise as Cecile was also a bit surprised and Lloyd looked intrigued. There's been a string of murders in the ghettos. Euphemia began. But honestly, calling them murders is actually putting it mildly. What do you mean? Suzaku asked. Your Highness. Euphemia said nothing as she handed Suzaku the same file folder she handed her sister. He opened the contents as he, Lloyd and Cecile looked at the same photographs inside. Suzaku's eyes were so wide they were almost circular as his jaw dropped in horror. Cecile gasped as she covered her mouth with both her hand and her eyes shook with terror. Even Lloyd's smile faded as they saw the graphic content inside. "That's just gross," Lloyd said rather bluntly. "This has been happening all over the ghettos." Euphemia explained. "There is a monster inside and I want you to put a stop to it, Suzaku." Me. Suzaku couldn't contain his surprise. "Aha, so we're monster hunters now," Lloyd mused amusingly. "Sub-Viceroy Euphemia, shouldn't you try talking to Viceroy Cornelia about this?" Cecile asked. "I've tried, but she didn't listen to me. She says the ghettos aren't her priority." Euphemia answered as she looked down in grief briefly. "Makes sense, discrimination against the numbers is the Empire's priority," Lloyd said. "Lloyd, be sensible for once," Cecile exclaimed. This is, just horrible. That's why I'm here now," Euphemia said as she gained a determined look on her face. "I already spoke with Dreadwing and he agreed to find whatever creature is causing this. I want you to join him, Suzaku. In fact, I'm ordering you, Suzaku Kururugi, find this monster and stop it." Suzaku was surprised at first before a serious and determined expression formed on his face as well. "Yes, Your Majesty." Ashford Academy, girls' dormitories. Shirley's roommate, now under the influence of Lelouch's Geass, continued to stand outside guarding the dorm room as Colin and CC continued to search the room. Both of them wore casual clothes, while Colin's was more casual, while CC dressed rather fancily with a red and black dress, a small hat, and her hair in 2 large pigtails. "You know, for someone who has no qualms about killing, he doesn't seem very comfortable with going through a girl's room," CC commented as she looked through the dresser. "Just shut up and keep looking," Colin grumbled as she wasn't comfortable with invading someone's privacy as well. "And what exactly are we looking for?" CC asked. "His gun, or something to show us where Shirley is," Colin answered as she looked through the desk. CC sat down on the bed with Shirley's diary in her hands. "There's no sign of the gun here, and her diary goes up to the 14th. The same day her father died," Colin muttered, still feeling a bit guilty about that. However, when she picked up a small box, it slipped from her hands and the contents spilled on the ground, revealing them to be pictures of her and Lelouch, and even some photos of just Lelouch himself. Colin kneeled down to try and pick them up when CC smirked. "Is that a look of jealousy on your face, my dear Colin?" the immortal teased. "None of your damn business," Colin said immediately as she hid a small blush. "Let's just stay focused, alright." She glanced down and saw a schedule book of the monorail lines in the Tokyo settlement. She noticed there was a bookmark on a page and opened it, but when she did, she looked in surprise to see one destination highlighted. Narita. Outside, Lelouch and Rai waited in the parking lot, right by Bumblebee's vehicle mode as Colin and CC both stepped out. "Well, what did you find?" Lelouch asked. "The gun wasn't there, but it looks like she's going to Narita." Colin handed Lelouch the schedule book, causing him to wince slightly as that was where her father passed away. "Bumblebee, how long will it take for us to drive there?" Rai asked. "At my top speed, about an hour," Bumblebee answered. "Problem is, my top speed is way faster than any car here on Earth, so I'd basically be giving us away. It would be easier if we use a ground bridge." "Yeah, good idea," Lelouch agreed, but he felt his phone ring and looked in surprise at the caller ID. "Suzaku." Colin and Rai looked in surprise, and even Bumblebee was a bit stunned as Lelouch answered it. "Hello. Hey Lelouch, it's me." Suzaku spoke into the phone. "Listen, I know I said I'd stay with Nunnally tonight, but something came up with work and I can't miss it." Lelouch's eyes narrowed as he had a good idea what he meant. The Decepticons had another job for him. "It's fine, I'll handle it, thanks for letting me know." "No problem. See ya." He hung up. "Lelouch," Bumblebee asked. "Change in plans," Lelouch began. "Colin, I want you stay here and stay with Nunnally tonight. Rai, CC, you come with me and Bumblebee to Narita. In fact, I also want you to call in RC and Cliffjumper to help you." "Wait, why me?" Colin asked. "Because I still don't know how that pureblood woman could connect the dots to my identity, or if she's working with anyone." Lelouch explained. "Worst case scenario, I know the 3 of you are more than capable of protecting her." "Colin, I need you to do this for me, please." Colin saw the pleading look in his eyes and understood. "All right, I'll call them, and we'll stay the night. Let me know what happens with Shirley." "Will do, and thanks." Lelouch smiled. "Come on, we need to go," Rai urged as he and Cece were already inside Bumblebee. Lelouch got into the driver's seat as Bumblebee drove off. Narita. There was still plenty of construction to clear out the landscape and demolished buildings below the mountain. But Shirley wasn't paying attention to any of them. The schoolgirl was at a memorial constructed for all the soldiers who died in the battle, but to her, it served as a memorial for her supposedly deceased father. She carried a bag with her, and in the bag is the same gun that she kept with her. So many thoughts ran through her head. Lelouch, the boy she had a crush on, was secretly the masked terrorist known as Zero. The one who killed her father, but also the one who saved her life at the hotel jacking. Not only that, but his car was apparently one of those Autobots that she saw on the news. But who were those other giant robots they were fighting? Why was Lelouch even fighting in the first place? What in the world is going on? Yes, what is going on, anyway? Shirley turned around in surprise to see a man in a white coat with a visor over his eyes and a pair of headphones over his head. The same one that had been spying on Lelouch and Cece the past few days. The man clapped his hands as he had a sinister smile on his face. "A very fine memorial. Isn't that right, Miss Shirley Finette?" The ARC. The Autobots and Black Knights were helping those of the Japan Liberation Front get situated in the alien ship that would serve as their base. More nightmares had been brought in, up to the point where they had twice as many as before. Already the Black Knights alone had become the biggest anti-Britannian group in Japan, and that's not even counting the potential the Autobots were capable of. Even though they were on different sides before, the JLF seemed to be getting along with some of the BKs, including Tamaki. But even more surprising, a few former JLF soldiers even hit it up with the Autobots, particularly Wheeljack, Bulkhead, and Cliffjumper. Even Ironhide said he'd help them with training so that they can better match the Decepticons. Geass walked onto a catwalk on the Ark's bridge, now in a Black Knight uniform of his own, where he saw Ogi on the same catwalk talking with Optimus. He politely waited for them to finish speaking before he got their attention. "Excuse me, Optimus Prime, and Ogi was it? Yeah. I just wanted to thank you, both of you, for everything you and Zero have done." Geass began. "You saved our entire army in Naratia, and even last night at Port Yokosuka." He gave a humble bow. "So please allow me to thank you. If it weren't for you, the Japan Liberation Front would probably be dead, and the spirit of Japan with it. We only did what was necessary, General." Optimus nodded. "But you are welcome. Also, allow me to express my deepest apologies for the actions of Kusakabe." Geass still kept his head bowed. "But that wasn't your fault." Ogi tried to tell him. "It wasn't like you guys told him to do that, right?" "No, we did not authorize his actions back then," Geass confirmed. "I tried to keep the Japan Liberation Front on a path of honor, to keep us from becoming the terrorists that Britannia tried to make us. But he went against our code, and brought shame upon us. And as a leader, I have to take responsibility." "I understand." Optimus did really understand as he was a leader himself. "But we are here now, and I can promise that we are careful in who we choose to join our ranks. We will not tolerate terrorism or oppression of any kind, and you are more than welcome to join us, General Geass." Geass smiled humbly. "And you have the complete support of Kyoto?" he asked. "Indeed, we do," Optimus confirmed. "Good, because we need to locate Toto and the Four Holy Swords as soon as possible," Geass said. "They're our best soldiers, and I know Toto can more than provide assistance to you, even against those Decepticons. We spoke with Kyoto and they've got their eyes peeled," Ogi informed. "The second he's spotted, they'll let us know." "That's good." A new voice spoke. Optimus, Geass, and Ogi looked to see Diethard walking in on the catwalk in his own Black Knight uniform. After all, with the likes of Zero, Optimus Prime, General Geass, and even Toto the Miracle Worker all working together, support for us will go through the roof. "Who is this?" Geass asked. "Diethard Reed, he's in intelligence," Ogi summed up. "However, I feel that Britannia and these Decepticons might not be too happy about it." Diethard continued. "Given the Empire controls 1/3 of the world, Not to mention the Decepticons possess powers and weapons that make even the most advanced nightmares seem like cheap toys in comparison. We still have a long road ahead of us. We do. Optimus confirmed. We face a strong enemy, however, the Black Knights and the Autobots are just as strong themselves. Diethard had something of a smirk on his face. And I look forward to seeing you in action again. He turned around before walking away. Geass narrowed his eyes. I know you said you're careful with who you bring into your ranks, but you don't have to say it, there's just something about him that gets you on edge. I feel the same way. Obi would be lying if he didn't say that he didn't completely trust Diethard. I don't believe he has any intentions of sabotaging us, however, I assure you that he is being closely monitored. Optimus could tell that Diethard wasn't a spy for Britannia, but he also had a good feeling that he wasn't just here to bring freedom to the Earth either. Bumblebee drove out of a ground bridge portal and onto an empty highway street some distance away from Narita. Lelouch sat in the driver's seat with Rain the passenger's seat, and CC in the backseat. So, have you thought about what you plan on doing once we find her? The Immortal asked Lelouch. Actually yes, I'm going to tell her everything. Lelouch answered, causing Rai and even CC to look at him in surprise. Who I am, why I became Zero, and why I need to fight. What is in the cons? Bumblebee asked, quite surprised himself. Do you also plan to tell her about your Geass? Yes. Lelouch responded with a serious expression as he looked out the window. Don't you think that might be a much to unload on her all at once? Rai asked. That's what you're worried about? CC questioned in an annoyed tone of voice. What do you mean? Rai questioned back. Lelouch, you do realize that if you tell her who you are, there is a strong possibility she could go to the police or even the military and tell them of your identity. CC pointed out. You may not care about your own life all that much, but what about your sister's? You do realize by doing this you're placing her in danger as well, correct? If that's the case, I'll have Nunnally moved to the Ark. I'm certain she'll be safe there. Lelouch responded. But that would mean you'd have to tell Nunnally about us too. Bumblebee pointed out. I'm actually considering that, Lelouch revealed. Wait, you're serious? Rai questioned. You wanna tell Shirley and Nunnally? I'm tired of lying to her like this. Lelouch said honestly. I swore to Nunnally I'd never lie to her. Well, technically you're not saying anything dishonest to her, Rai began. You're just avoiding certain details. Still, if things escalate with the Decepticons, I might not have a choice. Lelouch replied. In regard to Shirley, she's a good person, and I caused her so much pain. Even if she hates me, she deserves to know the truth, but what she does with that truth is complete up to her. You do realize you can avoid all this trouble by simply using your Geass on her. CC pointed out. I won't do that, not to her. Lelouch said. Because, that sounds like something my father would do. His fists clenched. And I refuse to become anything like him. Bumblebee was actually impressed by this. Lelouch had no intent of removing Shirley's free will with his Geass even if she ended up hating him, showing not just how much he cares about her, but also how much he is beginning to value the freedom of others. You know Lelouch, you're really starting to sound like an Autobot. Lelouch was mildly surprised at first but had a humble and grateful smile. Thank you, B. CC shook her head with a bit of disappointment. If you have someone you don't want to lose, it's always best to keep them at a distance. Are you speaking from experience? Rai asked her with a concerning look in his eyes. The immoral merely looked out the window. No, it's a way of life. Yeah, well, speaking from my experience, it's always best to keep those you care about closer to you. Bumblebee pointed out. Naratia. He's a cruel man, isn't he? Lelouch. The man in white said to Shirley, causing her to back away slightly. How do you know about Lulu? Shirley was starting to get a little nervous. Ah, he deceived you, never told you he's Zero. Shirley gave a gasp as the mysterious man continued. Zero, the masked-wearing superhero who travels with giant robots and saved you and all your friends from terrorists is also the same man who ordered the death of your father. Shirley's eyes wavered as she was more than a little scared right now. Who are you, what do you want? You're so confused, aren't you? The man in white continued. But he told me how his mother died, and how it cost his little sweet sister her eyes and legs. How can he be a murderer like Zero if he's so kind and honest? He mocked Shirley, as if he was reading her very thoughts. Well, let me tell you, you really don't know him at all, do you? He's a very bad man, and you like it. Why else would you stop yourself from shooting him back at Port Yokosuka, right? How do you know all this? Shirley stuttered. I know everything about you, Shirley. The man smiled deviously. Like how you forced yourself on him after Daddy died. You used your own father's death for your own gain. No, I just, she continued to stutter as her emotions were in a storm right now. Quite the cunning woman, aren't you? You knew he'd feel sorry for you, so you played it for all it was worth. No, you're wrong. Shirley shook her head. Tell me, what do you think is a fitting punishment for him? The man continued. He killed your father, how about you kill his sister too? It's only fair, don't you think? No, I wouldn't. She had nothing to do with it. Shirley exclaimed. How do you know? How do you know sweet little Nunnally isn't in on it? How do you know she's even blind and crippled? It's so sad, you claim to love Lelouch, but you really don't know him at all. Stop it, just stop it. She fell to her knees as she clenched her head. The man's smile faded slightly. I see, you really don't want to kill him or his sister, you're really that head over heels for him. Fine. He reached into his coat and pulled out a cloth in one hand and a bottle of chloroform in the other. If you love him so much, he poured the substance into the cloth. I'll be sure you spend all eternity with him, he smiled malevolently once more, in the afterlife. Before Shirley could even respond, the man shoved the cloth in her face and covered her mouth as he held her arms to her sides. She kicked and struggled, but he was too strong, and no one was close enough to hear her muffled screams as the chloroform soaked in. SSHH, breath it in, and just relax. He lulled as she felt her body weaken and her eyes felt heavy. That's it. Sleepy time. SSSHHH. After a few more seconds, Shirley had complete lost consciousness. The mysterious man sighed in disappointment. I'd hoped I could manipulate you into killing him, but I guess I'll have to go for a more direct approach. He unzipped Shirley's bag to see the gun. But, that doesn't mean we still can't make it fun. His malevolent smile reformed. Shinjuku. The sun was already starting to set over the Shinjuku ghetto as Dreadwing flew over it in his jet mode. His scanners didn't pick up anything as he continued to fly, however. He soon contacted his partner. Suzaku, I have yet to detect anything unusual. Dreadwing informed him. However, given the pattern and trails of the previous ghettos our monster has attacked, it's reasonable to assume that this ghetto is likely our prey's current residence. I understand. Suzaku responded as he rode the Lancelot slowly down an abandoned subway tunnel, the lights from the White Nightmare's shoulders providing illumination in the dark. I'll look underground while you keep your eyes in the sky. However, Suzaku, if you happen to find our monster before I do, contact me immediately and we'll deal with it together. I don't want you acting on your own when we have no knowledge as to what we are dealing with. Dreadwing instructed. Alright, I'll contact you if I find something. Suzaku replied as communications ended and the Lancelot continued its search. As it did, however, Suzaku was left alone with his thoughts as he couldn't believe this was happening. Shinjuku had already been through more than enough with the massacre when he was reunited with Lelouch, but now this. Just who or what could possibly be responsible for this? And why? However, the Lancelot's systems beeped as it detected something. Suzaku brought the White Nightmare to a slow halt as it turned down toward a tunnel on the right. The second its lights shinned, his eyes widened as Suzaku saw what appeared to be enormous spider webs strung across the walls and ceiling. Are those spider webs? Suzaku questioned before a serious expression on his face formed. Something told him that whatever he was looking for was down here. He drew one of his Nightmare's MVS blades and slowly proceeded down the tunnel to cut down the web and clear his path. Suzaku continued along this path for about 5 minutes, however, he didn't seem to notice that he wasn't alone in this tunnel. There was something crawling on the ceiling above him quietly and keeping a close eye on him with ominous purple eyes. The honorary Britannian and first human Decepticon came to a halt in the Lancelot as he saw a wall of webbing, but Suzaku gave an audible gasp as to what was in the webbing. People. More than a dozen of them, and they were all dead. No, dead was putting it mildly, they were butchered. Severed limbs laid on the ground as heads were stuck on the webbing, Some bodies were cut in half with the upper halves stuck on the web and hanging like trophies, while other limbs, the lower halves of the bodies, and even some organs laid on the ground, rotting with flies buzzing all around. While he did already see photographs of the same sort of thing, seeing it in person, even through the perspective of a nightmare, was another story altogether. "My God," Suzaku muttered as he covered his mouth to swallow the bile that was building up in his throat. "Your God had nothing to do with this." Acting on instinct, Suzaku went into action as the Lancelot swung its MVS at the source of the unknown voice behind him, but the entity leapt back to avoid the slash. The Lancelot's headlights shined to reveal the monster that was responsible for all these brutal murders, the former Decepticon known as Arachnid. She gave an amused hiss as she shot red energon blasts from her palms at the Lancelot, but it was quick to activate its blaze-luminous shield before rolling straight at Arachnid at high speeds, but she was able to leap to the tunnel's ceiling and stick to it with her spider legs to avoid the slice from the MVS. She leapt back down the tunnel further to avoid the slash harkins that shot at her as the Lancelot drove in pursuit. Once Arachnid made it into the open tunnel outside her den, she shot webbing from her palms to hit the right foot of the Lancelot, halting its advance much to Suzaku's shock as Arachnid leapt back onto the ceiling before jumping down and slamming her legs onto the Lancelot to pin onto the ground, while also knocking the single MVS out of the Lancelot's hand before she restrained the White Nightmare even further with more webbing. Suzaku struggled with the controls but found the Lancelot was just about immobile. He tried to contact his comrades. "Dreadwing. Lloyd, I found," however, Arachnid sliced into the neck-shoulder area of the Lancelot with one of her spider legs to sever the communications. "Nah, Arachnid waved her finger. "Can't have you calling for help, now can I?" Suzaku glared as Arachnid loomed over the Lancelot, her own face just inches away from the Nightmare's head. She also noticed the insignia inscribed on the shoulder. "Well, this is a surprise. I've heard some radio chatter about a human being integrated into the Decepticon ranks, but I never imagined that they would actually do it." Suzaku glared further, but his eyes widened in surprise as he saw the same insignia on Arachnid's chest. "You're a Decepticon." "Ex-con," Arachnid corrected. "After Cybertron went dark, I decided to go off on my own, and it's much more fun. Gives me some leeway to pursue my own hobby. Call me Arachnid. Tell me, Arachnid, have you been responsible for all the murders in all the other ghettos?" Suzaku demanded. "What gave me away?" Arachnid teased, which all but confirmed she was the monster responsible. Why are you doing this?" Suzaku questioned. "What do you have to gain from all this senseless bloodshed?" Arachnid only looked a bit confused. "What do I have to gain?" "Nothing really, just passing the time." "What?" Suzaku asked in shock. "Passing the time. Everyone needs a hobby, this is mine." Arachnid answered simply. "A hobby? A hobby?" Suzaku practically screamed. "You butchered dozens of innocent people. Children even. How can you possibly be okay with that?" Arachnid actually smiled in amusement. "Oluki, an idealist. I didn't think the Decepticons had any left, not with what Megatron did to Cybertron." That caught Suzaku off guard. What are you talking about? Megatron tried to save Cybertron. The only reason it's now uninhabitable is because the Autobots refused to stop fighting." Arachnid laughed in response. "Wow, you really are kept in the dark, aren't you?" However, before Arachnid could continue, a missile shot past her, forcing her off Suzaku as it exploded deeper in the tunnel. She, as well as Suzaku, looked in surprise to see Dreadwing flying down the tunnels in his jet mode before transforming and delivering an airborne punch to Arachnid's face and sending her flying and skidding across the ground. She tried to pull herself up but was forced to use her spider legs to propel her onto the ceiling as Dreadwing immediately drew his heavy energon cannon and opened fire. She leapt along the ceiling to avoid the blasts before coming to a hole at the top, which she climbed into to avoid the blasts and find cover closer toward the surface. Dreadwing then put his cannon away as he drew his blade to cut the webbing off the Lancelot, allowing Suzaku to stand up. "Kururugi, are you alright?" "Yes, I'm fine," Suzaku confirmed. "Dreadwing, how did you find me?" "She severed my communications. I heard your call before it was severed," Dreadwing explained. "Asplund was able to track your nightmare's signal and I came as soon as I could." He looked toward the hole where their prey escaped. "I knew that our quarry was likely an entity not of this world, but I never imagined that it would be Arachnid." You know her? Suzaku asked in surprise. Not personally, but I knew of her. Dreadwing confirmed. This was the first time I'd seen her with my own optics. So, she is a Decepticon. Suzaku's tone was that of somber. How could Megatron accept someone like her into a noble cause? Former Decepticon. Dreadwing made sure to put an extra emphasis on the former part. Now she is a rogue, and as such, she must be dealt with. We will capture her and bring her to Lord Megatron, where he will undoubtedly deliver the proper punishment. Let's go. Dreadwing proceeded to run down the tunnel in pursuit of Arachnid, but Suzaku hesitated for a second. However, he followed Dreadwing nonetheless while his head was still in a jumble after what Arachnid had just told him. Ashford Academy, Student Council Building. There, what do you think? Nunnally smiled as she held an origami crane in her hands. Well, it's better than mine. Colin chuckled nervously as she held what could only be described as a crunched-up ball of paper. Sorry, but origami was never my strong suit. Nunnally giggled slightly. You know, I'm a little surprised that you decided to visit. Well, Lelouch asked me to. Colin began. You heard what happened with Shirley's father. A saddened frown fell on the younger girl's face. Yes, it's so sad. Well, that's kind of the reason he's out. Colin explained. Lelouch and Rai are trying to help Shirley adjust. Oh, Nunnally wasn't sure how to respond to that. Colin sighed. Nunnally, listen, I know about you and Lelouch. I know the two of you are a former prince and princess of Britannia, and I know what happened to your mother. Nunnally gave a small gasp at that revelation. Lelouch told me, but I promise I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm pretty good at keeping secrets. It's okay, I believe I just didn't expect Lelouch to open up like this. Nunnally said. He's always so secretive, I even feel like that he's distancing himself from people a bit. Well, actually it's the opposite. Colin explained. He and I, and a couple of our friends, we've met some other people and they're helping us to open up and see things through a different perspective. A small smile fell on the redhead's face. They're really good people. Lelouch told me how he's made some friends recently. Nunnally said. I'd really like to meet them sometime. Well, you'd certainly get a kick out of them, that's for sure. Colin joked a bit. But seriously, I'm really sorry for what happened to you two and for your mother. I know what it's like. Recently my brother passed away. Nunnally gasped. Oh my gosh, Colin, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Colin replied truthfully. It's so sad, how much loss people are going through. Nunnally looked as though she was on the verge of crying. Why can't the world be a gentler place? Colin sighed. Truth is, there are just bad people out there. But that doesn't mean there's still good in the world. I may have lost my brother, but I've gained so many other friends. I'm not alone, and she held Nunnally's hand. You're not alone, and neither is Lelouch. I promise I'll be here for both of you, whenever you need me. Nunnally smiled as she put her other hand on top of Colin's. Thank you, Colin. Narratia. After arriving at the ruined city, the group decided to split up and find Shirley. Lelouch went in one direction, Rai in another. Bumblebee would drive the perimeter of the area with CC. Lelouch himself walked through a path in between some ruined buildings. He winced slightly as he saw them, knowing he was directly responsible for that. However, he knew that while he did arrange for the city to be evacuated, he understood that there are some things that remained outside his control, including Shirley's father. But regardless, he still promised himself he'd protect her and had every intention of keeping his word. His thoughts were interrupted as his phone rang. He gave a gasp and saw that the caller ID was from Shirley's phone. He immediately answered. Shirley, I'm here. Are you okay? Oh, I'm sorry, Shirley can't come to the phone right now. She's a bit tied up. Lelouch was surprised to not only hear that someone else was on the other line, but that the voice was also coming from behind him. He turned around to see the same man in white who kidnapped Shirley before his arrival. Who are you? Lelouch demanded. The man said nothing as he threw Shirley's phone towards Lelouch's feet, which only made him even angrier. You scum! What have you done with Shirley? The man clapped his hands once more. Ooh, I like it, the scary face. The face of a man whose woman was taken away from him. What the hell did you do with her? Lelouch shouted. You want to know, then you'll have to accept my challenge. The man said. First, drop the phone, I don't want any of your Autobot pals crashing this little game of ours, Zero. Lelouch's pupils shrunk. How could this man know about him and the Autobots? Drop the phone, now. The man repeated. Seeing how he had little options, and knew next to nothing about this man, especially with Shirley's life potentially at stake, he did just that and dropped his phone on the ground. Follow me, oh, and if you're looking for a name, it's Mao. The man named Mao turned around and Lelouch reluctantly followed with a hardened glare. The two walked in silence for a couple of minutes as Lelouch tried to figure out who this guy is. He's Chinese, so I don't think he's a spy for Britannia, and he doesn't seem like he's involved with the Chinese Federation either. But how could he have known about me? How does he know about the Autobots? Is he involved with Decepticons? But if that's the case, did they know about me as well? After about 10 minutes, Mao had brought Lelouch to a railcar near a forested hill. You know, I'm really glad that everyone's so busy with construction right now. Mao explained. This railcar was a pretty popular place for tourists until that war between you, your bots, your big sister, and the cons. But now it's closed, which means we got no one to disturb our privacy. Oh, and if you're wondering, I'm not involved with Megatron. I've never even met a Cybertronian face to face. Then who are you? Lelouch questioned as Mao opened the door. But Lelouch gasped as he saw Shirley inside. Her hands were tied behind her back, with rope to bind her arms to her upper body. Her ankles were also tied together, and she had a strip of duct tape over her mouth. Shirley. She gave a muffled scream as she saw Lelouch, but before he could even think about helping her, Mao pulled out a pistol, the same pistol that Lelouch previously had that Shirley took back at Port Yokosuka, and pointed it right at Shirley, causing her to look in terror. I'm the one who holds the life of someone you care so dearly about in my hands. Mao sneered evilly as Lelouch practically gnashed his teeth at her. Tell you what though, you specialize at this, right? Mao revealed a chessboard in between two seats with the pieces already arranged. Beat me, and I'll let her go. But if I win, her life is entirely in my hands. Not that you have a choice anyway. Bumblebee continued to drive through the area with CC in his backseat, being careful not to run into any construction workers. It doesn't look like she's here. CC commented. Maybe she went home. Bumblebee tried to contact Lelouch. Hey, we've searched the entire perimeter, but we can't find her. There was no response, however, much to Bee's confusion. Ah, hello. Lelouch, are you there? Even CC was somewhat surprised. Something's wrong, he always picks up. CC turned out the window and looked to see the railcar moving. Why is that railcar running? The disguised Autobot scout zoomed in with his optics, but he caught sight of Lelouch as well as Shirley tied up and even Mao, whom he didn't recognize. They're in trouble. Someone has kidnapped Shirley and he has Lelouch with him. CC looked through Bumblebee's dashboard as a screen brought up what Bumblebee was seeing through his optics. Her heart skipped as she saw the man Lelouch was with. It can't be, no, not him. Wait, you know that guy? Bumblebee questioned. CC immediately climbed into the driver's seat and pulled out her phone to call their other associate. Rai, are you there? CC, what's going on? Rai asked on the other line. Where are you? I'm close to that moving railcar. Why? Listen, Lelouch and Shirley are in trouble. Someone bad is holding Shirley hostage there and Lelouch needs help, now. Get there as soon as you can. CC exclaimed. What? Okay, I'll be there soon. Rai hung up, all the while Bumblebee did not like the tone in CC's voice. She sounded afraid, and he's never heard her sound like that before. CC, what is going on? Bumblebee questioned. Just drive. Get over there now. CC told him. Lelouch can't beat him. He just can't. All Bumblebee needed to know was that Lelouch was in trouble, so he put the pedal to the metal and drove to where the railcar would stop at the top of the hill as fast as he could. Mao sat in one seat, with his arm held around the bound Shirley, who was so terrified tears were already pouring down her face. Lelouch gave her an assuring look in his eyes, silently telling her she was going to be alright. At the same time, as he was forced to play this game of chess, he tried to put the pieces together in regard to this Mao character. He knows my identity, even knows about the conflict between the Autobots and the Decepticons, and yet, he said he's not aligned with Megatron. I don't think he was lying, but how did he know about them? Lelouch thought to himself as he moved one piece on the board. What I do know, is he's trying to lure me to an isolated place. Shirley was the bait, and he's trying to get me away from Bumblebee and the others, and I don't have any means to contact Optimus. Guess I'm on my own here. You know, I've never actually played this game before, don't you? Mao teased as he still kept a firm grip on Shirley while moving one of his own pieces. So long as he has those sunglasses, I can't use my Geass on him. Lelouch continued to think as he tried to find a way out of this. But, I haven't even contacted Bumblebee yet, so. You think your precious yellow scout will get worried and come to your rescue? Mao teased, catching Lelouch off guard. Bee's pretty fast, I'll grant him that. But Naratia is huge, and the odds of him finding us all the way out here are pretty slim. Mao used one of his pieces to eliminate the knight on Lelouch's side. You liar, you have played this game before. Lelouch narrowed his eyes. Tell me something, what exactly was it that made you change your mind? Mao teased. You became Zero to completely obliterate Britannia, right? But something about you has changed since then. Was it how you ordered the death of poor Shirley's father? He rubbed her hair as Shirley only gave a frightened squeak underneath her gag. No, it actually started sooner than that, when you met the Autobots in their precious ark. Mao moved another piece, catching Lelouch off guard. Not only has Mao completely turned the chess game on him, but he was catching onto Lelouch's motives. By the time the railcar reached the top of the hill, the game was over, and Mao had removed Lelouch's king from the board. Checkmate. Lelouch was beyond stunned. How could he predict every move I made? Who in the world is he? Didn't CC tell you about me? Mao teased. That caught Lelouch's attention. Mao clapped his hands in response. Well done, in one lightning moment, you came up with 14 possible identities for me. And one of them is precisely correct. He lowered his visor to reveal a familiar red emblem in both his eyes. He has Geass too. Lelouch instinctively activated his own and tried to use it, but Mao already put his visor back on. Let's see now, for your Geass you have to look directly into someone's eyes. But for some reason, it can't affect Cybertronians. Mao deduced with a confident grin. Oh, I know all the rules for your little gift. Lelouch finally understood how Mao knew who he was and his connection to the Autobots, as well as how he could predict Lelouch's moves. You can read minds. You could call my Geass mind reading, and before you ask, I really have no idea if I can read Cybertronian minds myself. Mao confirmed. Lelouch looked ready to jump Mao, but he already pulled out his gun and placed it at the side of Shirley's, causing her to scream and cry underneath her gag. Ah, poor little Shirley. She really has no idea what's going on. Let her go. Now, Lelouch exclaimed. Nope, I won the game. Mao smiled as he grabbed the bound Shirley and pulled her up just as the door behind them opened. And that means, her life is entirely in my hands. Shinjuku. A hole had been blasted out of the ground as Dreadwing climbed up out of it, with the Lancelot not too far behind. The two had entered a large, empty, and ruined building that looked as if it was on the verge of collapsing, but there was no mistaking their quarry was here. Arachnid, show yourself, deserter, Dreadwing exclaimed. There was no response as Suzaku looked around on his nightmare's radar. Dreadwing, why would Megatron even allow someone like her into his ranks? Before Dreadwing could offer a response, they heard Arachnid's voice echo throughout the building. Because he took an interest in my skills. Do you know what I did during the war? She asked as the two looked around but couldn't find the source. I specialized in information gathering, and by that, I mean the torture and dismemberment of enemy Autobots. Suzaku practically gnashed his teeth as Dreadwing stayed firm. Kururugi, remain calm, he told him. Kururugi. Arachnid's voice echoed. As in, Suzaku Kururugi. A faint laugh echoed throughout the building. That explains why you're here. Oh yes, I know all about you. The infamous son of the late Genbu Kururugi, who defected to Britannia. How do you know about that? Suzaku exclaimed. You'd be surprised what kind of rumors echoes through these ghettos. Arachnid continued to taunt as they still couldn't. But I can't imagine why an 11 would join Megatron's ranks, let alone one with idealism. Was it bribery? Or a promise for power? No, it's nothing like that, Suzaku shouted. Suzaku, do not let her get to you. Dreadwing told him. You asked me why I do what I do. Arachnid continued. I already told you it was my personal hobby. I kill, I butcher, I dismember, I skin alive, that's just who I am. Suzaku clenched the controls of his Lancelot as Arachnid continued to taunt. But there is a reason why I choose to hunt in the ghettos. It's because Britannia doesn't care. There are plenty of serial killers and terrorists hiding in these ruins besides myself, and yet, Britannia doesn't do anything to stop them. Arachnid began to descend on some webbing from the very center of the ceiling, close towards Dreadwing and the Lancelot as they remained back to back, but neither of them appeared to look up. You're quite the idealist, aren't you, Suzaku? Arachnid teased as she lowered herself even closer. Unfortunately, you're on a side that thrives of killing idealism. She was just above their heads, with her spider legs ready to decapitate both. Quite the contradictory, don't you think? However, Dreadwing had already noticed her as he grabbed her by the throat and pulled her down, getting Suzaku's attention. However, Arachnid was able to spray some webbing in Dreadwing's face and kick him off before jumping to avoid a punch from the Lancelot. Arachnid landed on a damaged floor a story above as she quickly shot more webbing to pin Dreadwing to a pillar at the ground. The Lancelot leapt into the air to try and deliver a spinning kick to Arachnid on the next story, but she had already jumped into the air toward the third floor as she shot her palm lasers while airborne at the Lancelot, but Suzaku had already activated his blaze luminous shield to block the blasts. Arachnid's spider legs caught onto the floor of the third story and she pulled herself up and out of the way just as the Lancelot shot its slash harken toward her, which he used to pull himself up onto the same level as Arachnid. He pulled out one MVS blade as he shot right at her, but she ducked out of the way as he sliced a pillar, which began to tip over and fall. Arachnid had leapt onto the side of the large pillar as it fell down, but the other end caught onto the other side of the massive gap, acting as a bridge connecting the two broken sides of the third floor. The Lancelot ended up on the makeshift bridge as well as it drew its second MVS blades. Arachnid merely smirked as she brandished her spider arms. Arachnid was the first to attack as she lashed out her spider arms at the White Nightmare, but Suzaku blocked the attack with one MVS blade before striking at Arachnid with the other, which she avoided by jumping back. Suzaku tried to press the attack, but the Spider-Con blocked the repeated blade strikes with her bladed appendages before she jumped over and behind the Lancelot, but Suzaku was fast enough to motion the Nightmare's arm to knock Arachnid off the pillar, but she didn't fall very far as she spun some webbing to catch her before swinging up and over the pillar to land both her feet onto the Lancelot and kick it off the makeshift bridge. However, like Arachnid, the Lancelot deployed one slash harken from its arm to catch onto the ceiling and pull himself straight up towards Arachnid. Suzaku was already getting so sick of Arachnid, that seeing her taunting smirk was enough for him to make him draw his Varus rifle and shoot at her. She dodged the blast but looked in surprise to see the blast actually blow a massive hole in the wall. Dreadwing tried to wrench himself free, but he felt the building vibrate and realized what Suzaku was using. Kururugi. Do not use the Varus. This structure is unstable. Arachnid happened to hear Dreadwing's clam and an evil smirk fell on her face as an idea came to mind. She quickly rushed the Lancelot and climbed onto its back as she stabbed its right arm, the one that held the Varus, with two of her spider legs while grabbing the arm with her own hands. With the right wires pulled, she forced the Lancelot to aim the Varus at the supporting pillars down at the ground and opened fire, multiple times. The building soon began to collapse, and Arachnid used this opportunity to push the Lancelot off the top floor, sending it crashing onto the ground just as the ceiling gave in. In less than a minute, the entire building had collapsed into a pile of rubble. It was a rather small building, only 6 stories high, so it didn't cause further damage to the area as it collapsed. Arachnid was the first to pull herself out of the rubble, as she was the closest to the ceiling and she could escape it with little damage as she was now outside. Well, a bit nosier than I thought, but it gets the job done. She teased and was about to walk away, when she heard some rubble shift in 2 different areas. She looked the furthest away to see Dreadwing digging himself out of the rubble. However, before he was completely out, Arachnid shot more web at him to trap him even further. I'll deal with you later, but first things first. She turned to see the heaving damaged Lancelot, slowly try to pull itself out, but apparently only its left arm was the most functional. Suzaku saw multiple red screens inside his cockpit, seeing how the Lancelot was pretty much inoperable right now. But he wasn't about to give up. Come on, however, the back of his cockpit was torn open, by none other than Arachnid, who reached in to grab Suzaku himself, yank him out and pin him to a piece of rubble with her webbing. "Do you know what it is I hate most about nightmares, Suzaku?" Arachnid taunted as she loomed dangerously over him. "They don't have any real faces. That's what I always loved the most about what I do, to see the looks on their faces as I snuff them out. I skin and butcher in different ways, just to experiment and see what kind of expressions I get. Having a pelt or a stuffed head is nice and all, but nothing gives me more pleasure than seeing the final expression of fear and despair in someone's eyes as their life is snuffed out." Realizing he couldn't get out of this, Suzaku merely closed his eyes in acceptance. "This isn't how I thought I would die, but I guess this is it." But this was not the end, however, as Arachnid groaned in pain when multiple bullets struck her from behind. She looked in surprise to see 2 Gloucester Nightmares quickly rolling toward her, along with 3 Britannian military helicopters flying in behind them as well. "All units, open fire," Guilford exclaimed as he and Darlton opened fire with their Nightmare rifles, and even the helicopters opened fire with their guns. Arachnid scowled as she leapt back to avoid the shots. She leapt towards a separate building and began to climb its outer wall, with the hovering helicopters continuing to shoot at her. As the helicopters were in pursuit, Darlton's Nightmare rolled over to Dreadwing as he used his Gloucester's lance to try and pry the webbing off as Guilford came over to Suzaku. "Warrant Officer Kururugi, are you alright?" Guilford asked as his Gloucester kneeled down to peel the webbing off Suzaku. "Lord Guilford." Suzaku had not expected to see him. "But I thought Princess Cornelia." "Princess Cornelia didn't explicitly say we couldn't provide assistance," Darlton said as he helped Dreadwing out of the rubble. "And while it's true we serve as Viceroy Cornelia's knights, it doesn't mean we just ignore other members of the royal family." Guilford added as his Nightmare turned to the approaching vehicle that served as a mobile base owned by the Camelot division, with Lloyd, Cecile, and even Princess Euphemia inside. The 3 of them saw footage of Arachnid climbing to the top of the building with the helicopters continuing to shoot at her. "So, this is our little boogeyman from the ghettos, Lloyd mused. "An insect-like transformer, how interesting." Euphemia and Cecile said nothing as they found the appearance of this particular Cybertronian to be more than a little disturbing. Arachnid meanwhile had made it to the top but was quickly surrounded in the air by the 3 helicopters above her that had their guns trained on her. Arachnid scowled, knowing that she couldn't win this fight. So, her eyes briefly glowed green as a beam shot from her optics to scan one of the helicopters. Once she had the necessary schematics, she transformed into a sleek, black helicopter mode before she opened fire with red energon blasts to knock the 3 helicopters out of the sky before flying away herself. "No!" Suzaku exclaimed as he, Guilford, Darlton, and even Dreadwing watched helplessly as Arachnid flew outside their reach and into the setting sun. Euphemia and Cecile also looked in surprise while Lloyd looked excited. "Aha, so that's how they do it. Ingenious." Now that the enemy was gone, Euphemia wasted no time stepping down and running out of the large vehicle. "Princess Euphemia." Cecile tried to call to her. "Suzaku." He heard his name being called and looked in surprise to see Yuffie running towards him, but was completely caught off guard when she wrapped her arms around him and buried her face into his chest. "Yuffie, your highness." Suzaku stuttered as he did not know what to make of this. Even Guilford and Darlton saw this from their nightmares and were beyond stunned themselves. "I'm sorry, Suzaku." Yuffie apologized as she let him go. "I'm sorry you had to face something like that. You could have been killed and it would have been my fault." She bowed her head. "I apologize, please forgive me." Suzaku tried to put on a assuring smile. "You have nothing to apologize for, your highness." He bowed to her. "I was doing my duty as a soldier, that's my job." Euphemia didn't like how quickly he brushed off just how close he was to being killed by that monster. However, right now she was just glad he was alright. She looked to the approaching Decepticon. "Dreadwing, thank you for accompanying him." "Of course, it was my pleasure." Dreadwing nodded his head. However, he scowled as he looked toward the sky. Even Yuffie, Suzaku, as well as Guilford and Darlton in their nightmares all knew that Arachnid was still out there, an even greater threat now that she was mobile. However, Suzaku looked to the Decepticon badge that was still on his uniform as Arachnid's words continued to replay in his head. "Naratia." The bound and gagged Shirley was forced on her knees outside the railcar as Mao kept the gun pressed against the back of her head. Lelouch had a scowl as well as a terrified look in his eyes. "Oh, what can I do?" Mao mocked as he continued to read his mind. "What would Optimus do? I had no idea you admired the Autobots so much, him in particular." As Lelouch glared at Mao, the madman clapped his hands. "Oh, you don't just admire him, do you? He's like a father to you, isn't he?" Lelouch gave a stunned gasp, realizing what Mao just pulled out of his mind. "Can't say I blame you, seeing how your real dad is such a douchebag." "Let her go," Lelouch growled. "Why? Are you that afraid of losing her?" Mao continued to mock. "Is she your friend? How can she be your friend when all you've done is lie and hurt her?" He forced Shirley's teary and terrified face up and forced her to look at Lelouch. "Look at him, Shirley. Look at the man who lied to you, killed your father, and broke your heart in two. I can only imagine just how much he's hurt you." "I said let her go," Lelouch exclaimed. "Wow, your head is so mixed up right now." Mao continued. "Under normal circumstances, you're a near-perfect strategist, one you intend to model yourself after Optimus, right? But when someone else is in control of the situation, and someone you hold so dear can die any second, you lose all control and all sense of thought, right? You told your friends that it's fine if she hates you, but deep down you want her forgiveness." Lelouch's face became one of fear as Mao's finger was just an inch away from the trigger. "Well, let me tell you right now, since I've read her mind too, she'll never forgive you." Mao sneered evilly, causing the look in Lelouch's eyes to turn into one of shock and fear. "How can she? You're a terrorist who betrayed her country, you murdered her father in cold blood. You think you're a hero, like Daddy Optimus Prime. You're a sinner, you'll never be an Autobot and you know it. Even now, as you watch your precious Shirley die." Shirley screamed through her gag. Mao was about to pull the trigger. Lelouch was about to scream himself, but neither of them noticed Rai arrive onto the scene from behind Lelouch, having ran as fast as he could. He happened to hear most of the conversation, but when it looked like Shirley was about to die right in front of him, something inside him snapped. It was as if time stopped all around the amnesiac youth as an image came to his memory. He stood in the middle of a rainstorm, having fallen on his knees as he saw two bodies in a puddle of blood, both female. The older woman had brown hair and was of Japanese descent, while the other was a girl just a year younger than him with the same kind of white hair as his. Both were dead and his face was of complete and total horror. Rai had that same face as it looked like Shirley was about to die right in front of him. He didn't know what that image was, but it caused something inside him to explode in flames as a Geass sigil manifested in both his eyes and he shouted at the top of his lungs. "Get your hands off her!" Lelouch turned around with a gasp as his own eyes widened to see Rai, and even more so that he saw the Geass sigil in his eyes. Mao himself was shocked to finally notice Ray's presence, but even more so as the second he heard Ray's voice enter his ears, something compelled him to drop Shirley and the gun before he even got the chance to fire. There was a red ring in Mao's eyes as he backed away, but it quickly faded as a look of pure shock formed on his face. "What, you have a Geass too?" Before anyone could even move, a pair of headlights shined from the forest on the side as Bumblebee drove out from the trees before transforming and delivering a backhand slap to Mao's body and send him off the platform, crashing into the forest the Autobot came out of. Lelouch and Rai quickly ran over to Shirley and covered her with their bodies as Bumblebee stood in front of them. Mao tried to pick himself up but had to run into the forest to avoid the energon blasts from Bumblebee. "I don't understand," Mao thought as he hid behind several trees for cover. He felt his side and could tell that most of his ribs were broken, as was his right arm. "I didn't even hear him coming. Lelouch's Geass doesn't let him control bots, guess I can't read their minds either." "Mao." He turned around with a gasp at that familiar voice and saw the green-haired immortal looking at him with an expression mixing sadness and sympathy. "CC." An excited look fell on his face. "Is it you? It's been so long." He was cut off by more energon blasts in his direction. He scowled briefly knowing he couldn't get to her with an Autobot looming over him. "I'll come back for you, CC," he said as he ran into the forest to vanish completely. "I promise." Bumblebee withdrew his blaster as he walked towards CC, who merely looked in the direction her former contractor vanished. "Mao, I never felt you would come out among people." The yellow Autobot clearly had some questions for the immortal, but that could wait. He simply turned around and took a few steps back as Lelouch and Rai worked to untie and Shirley. It's all right, he's gone. Lelouch consoled her. Lulu, Rai, she latched onto Lelouch as she cried into his chest. I was so scared. Lelouch wasted no time in embracing her and Rai was quick to do the same. It's okay, we've got you. You're safe. Rai consoled her as well. Shirley continued to cry as she held them tighter. Shirley, I am so sorry. Lelouch said as his voice began to crack. I caused you so much pain, but I promise, I'll tell you everything. No more secrets, no more lies. Lelouch and Rai held and comforted Shirley a couple more minutes before they explained to her the whole story. Lelouch told her who he was before, as Prince Lelouch v Britannia, as well as his sister the former Princess Nunnally v Britannia. He told her how their mother died, which he had previously told her before, and how it cost Nunnally her sight and legs, and that incident was what led his father, the Emperor, to banish them to Japan right before he declared war on the country and likely signing their own death warrants. Lelouch and Nunnally had been taken in by Suzaku's family, but after Japan fell, they were taken in by the Ashfords and it's thanks to Millie and her family they even have a place to stay. After that, Lelouch explained what really happened in Shinjuku, how he met CC, and his Geass which led to him meeting the Autobots and taking the Mantle of Zero. However, Lelouch didn't go into details yet in regards to the Autobots' conflict with the Decepticons as this was already more than enough for her to process. The sun had set and night had fallen over Naratia as the three students sat on the same steps, never having moved from the spot. Shirley remained silent as she had an unreadable expression on her face. Hey, Shirley, you're still with us? Rai asked. Yeah, she nodded. It's just a lot to take in. First, Lulu is a prince, then he's Zero and Rai, you're a Black Knight. Yeah, I am. Rai nodded. In fact, the one who caused that landslide here in Narita was me. I am so sorry. Rai looked as if he was about to cry himself as Shirley had a sympathetic expression to give. We both are. Lelouch added. Shirley, I never meant to hurt you. I even tried to see that Narita was evacuated before the battle. I didn't want innocent people caught in the crossfire but there are some things that are just outside our control. I think I understand that. Shirley seemed to get it. But Lulu, Rai, why you? Why are you even fighting? I mean, I understand why with your father, and your mother, and Nunnally but, what if something happened to you? What if you were hurt or worse? Lelouch had an understanding expression as he answered. That's why I have the Black Knights, and why I work with the Autobots. We're all a team, we protect each other, help each other get better and become stronger. I became Zero, because I couldn't stand the way the world was now. Where the weak are always trampled by the strong and are never given a second thought. I refuse to live in that world, so I'm going to tear it down and try to make it into something better. I'm up against an enemy that is beyond ruthless, and it's not just Britannia, someone has to take a stand, and fight for what's right. I couldn't wait for someone else so, I did it myself. His expression became more sorrowful. But the last thing I wanted was for you to be put in danger because of me, or for you to lose someone you love. I'm sorry, you have right to hate me. Shirley sighed as a small smile formed on her face. Lulu, I could never hate you. Lelouch, and even Rai were taken by surprise as she looked at the raven-haired boy with a genuine smile. At first, I didn't really like you when we first met in our freshman year but, Shirley began. After that whole thing with the elderly couple in their car, I wanted to get to know you, to see what went on in your head, and now, I think I understand. Lelouch, you're far from perfect but, I know that you're a good person, you're so kind and gentle, you want to protect people, and make the world a better place. I loved my dad very much and I'll always miss him but, I don't blame you for that, it was an accident and, like you said, some things are just beyond our control. Lelouch, I forgive you. Lelouch did not expect those words to come from Shirley's mouth, neither did Rai as she smiled at him too. Rai, I forgive you too. Shirley, Rai didn't know what to say. You've been hanging this guilt over your head for so long, but you said it yourself that you never wanted something bad like that to happen. It was an accident. Shirley smiled at him as she put a hand on his shoulder. Tears formed in the amnesiac boy's eyes. I'm so sorry Shirley. You're one of the best people I've met and, I hurt you. No, you didn't, Shirley assured him as she pulled him into a warm embrace. I know you would never hurt me, you're a good person Rai. Rai smiled and nodded as he wiped the tears away after she let him go. Before she turned to the other boy next to her. Lelouch, I had no idea you went through so much. Shirley began. First you lost your mother, then your sister loses her eyes and legs, and then your own father kicks you out for no reason and you two almost died. I can't imagine. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. There's so much right now that I don't know, but I do know one thing. Whether you're Lelouch v Britannia, Lelouch Lamperouge, or even Zero, I know I can trust you. You're not a terrorist, you're not a monster, you're a hero. You're my hero. Lelouch had no idea how to respond as she finished. You saved me, twice. Thank you. Now it was Lelouch's turn to cry. A part of him had expected she'd hate him, but there was another part that desperately wanted her to forgive him. She was one of the most kind and noble people he met in his life, and he took her for granted before, but even after all that's happened, she chose to forgive him. He continued to cry as she pulled him into a comforting embrace. They pulled away as CC was walked towards them. So, this is the one who gave you your Geass thing. Yeah, that's her. Lelouch confirmed. Call me CC. CC, thank you for helping Lulu. Shirley smiled. The immortal was slightly caught off guard by the show of gratitude but nodded in acknowledgement. Bumblebee walked closer to them. Shirley was somewhat startled by his sudden appearance, but she could tell that he harbored no ill intent. And, this is. Lelouch smiled slightly. Shirley, meet Bumblebee. He's my car, guardian, Autobot, friend. The Autobot scout kneeled down to be on equal eye level with her. Shirley looked into his eyes and saw immediately that this was a gentle giant, and if Lelouch trusted him and considered him a friend, then she would too. Thank you, Bumblebee. You're welcome. He bleeped, causing her to look in slight confusion. He says, you're welcome. Rai translated for her. Lelouch smiled at the girl that he knew he could trust completely and consider a true friend. Hey, I think it's time you met the rest of our little social circle. Bumblebee in his vehicle mode drove out of a ground bridge portal and into the hallways of the Ark. Lelouch sat in the driver's seat with Shirley in the passenger seat as she looked out the window in wonder at the inside of the alien vessel, with Rai and CC in the backseat. The Autobot scout had contacted Optimus and informed him of what they were doing, so there were no Black Knights currently in the Ark's bridge as Bumblebee entered. As Bumblebee came to a stop, the doors opened as the four humans stepped out. Shirley looked around in wonder at the sight of the Autobots that stood around her, from Fix-It to Wheeljack, Bulkhead, Ironhide, even Ratchet. RC and Cliffjumper were still watching over Ashford, with Colin staying with Nunnally for the night. But her eyes widened in pure amazement at the sight of the Autobot leader that stood tall above the rest, Optimus Prime himself. Lelouch and Rai stood next to her with CC right behind them. Shirley, meet our science fiction club. Rai introduced for her. The schoolgirl had an awkward smile as she gave a small wave. Hi. Cheering Mao. After Shirley was introduced to the Autobots. The schoolgirl was briefly told about the conflict between the Autobots and the Decepticons. She also met Colin at the Ark and also learned of her being in the Black Knights. Lelouch and Rai were the ones to explain the situation regarding the Autobots, Decepticons, and Cybertron. But they didn't go into any specific details, just that the Decepticons helped bring Britannia to where they are now and have the potential to destroy the entire world. Which is why Lelouch and the Black Knights were working with the Autobots. Shirley promised that she wouldn't say anything to anyone, so Lelouch, Rai, and Bumblebee helped Shirley home before the two returned to the Ark, where the other Autobots, Colin, and CC were all waiting to discuss the current problem they were all facing. Someone else has Geass, Ratchet exclaimed. Yeah, some guy named Mao, but his ability is very different from Lelouch's, Bumblebee said. Mao said he had the ability to read minds, which is how he was able to learn about my identity. Lelouch added. Most of the Autobots, particularly Ironhide, RC, and Ratchet, and even Lelouch and Colin, glanced at the only person who could give them an explanation. Alright, start talking. Ironhide told the immortal. Where'd this guy come from? He's from the Chinese Federation, though he's not aligned with any military branches or organizations. CC explained. He's not exactly social. And you didn't tell us this before, why? RC questioned. I honestly thought he was dead, I hadn't seen Mao in years. CC answered. I don't get it. Bulkhead said. Lelouch's Geass lets him control people, so why is this Mao guy a mind reader? The way Geass manifests is different for each person. CC explained. If Mao concentrates, he can hear thoughts up to 500 meters away, and he can read clear down into your subconscious if he wants to. For someone like Lelouch who fights with his head, he's his worst possible enemy. You said Geass manifests differently. Does that mean you've given it to others before? Not just Lelouch and this Mao guy? Colin questioned. Yes. CC confirmed. How many? Lelouch questioned. I don't know. I've made so many contractors in the past that I've lost count. CC responded. But so far as I know, you and Mao are the only ones currently alive. Well, we kinda guessed that might have been the case. Cliffjumper said. Given you're a whole lot older than you look. So, what kind of Geass would I get if I made a contract with you? Colin asked. I don't know. I have no control over that, it depends on the innermost desires of the person I form a contract with. CC explained. CC, was there a specific reason you choose to form a contract with Mao? Optimus asked. I felt he could meet my criteria, but he couldn't, so I left. CC answered. And you just left him out to dry? Wheeljack questioned. That's kinda harsh, don't ya think? This coming from an Autobot who's typically a lone wolf. CC commented. Least I don't abandon my friends. Wheeljack pointed out. Okay, how about instead of arguing, we focus on the problem we're facing right now? Cliffjumper got everyone back on track. Is it possible for Mao to retain the information from the mind he has read? Optimus asked CC. Yes, the immortal confirmed, meaning, he likely knows everything I do. Lelouch assumed with a grave expression. He knows who I am, both as a former prince, and as Zero, and everything about you and the Decepticons, even the Ark's location. It's not like he can get to us though, considering how deep we are underwater right now. Rai put in. That is correct. Fixit added. Given the water pressure at this depth, no human could survive the attempt to swim down here. I highly doubt he's gonna come here all alone, though. Ironhide guessed. You think he could go to Britannia? Tell Cornelia where we are. RC asked the veteran. Well, it's certainly something I would do. Cliffjumper seemed to agree. What makes you think the Mind Boy's gonna stop with just Britannia? Wheeljack questioned. Why not go even higher? You mean Megatron? Bulkhead asked. Ratchet gave something of a scoff. How would Mao even know where to find the Decepticons? Lelouch doesn't know their whereabouts. And even if he did, I highly doubt Megatron would entertain such an idea. Why not? Colin questioned. The Human-Bot Alliance works for us, plus he's already got Suzaku on his strings. Mao is after me, CC said. He's not seeking to destroy the Black Knights or the Autobots. I could have guessed that. Lelouch said. He could have gone to Cornelia or Megatron before and told them my identity as well as the Ark's location. But instead he went after Shirley. Why Shirley though? Cliffjumper asked. I mean, it's not like she had anything to do with us. Well, she was in Port Yokosuka. Bumblebee put in. But she's not connected to us. At least she wasn't before, until Lelouch brought her onto the Ark. Ratchet said in a tone indicating he didn't really approve of it. Or perhaps Shirley was targeted because of close she was to Lelouch, not to Zero, but to Lelouch. Optimus assumed. What are you saying, Optimus? Lelouch asked. This is merely speculation. Optimus began. But I believe that Mao may have been watching you for some time, enough so that he could read into your mind and discover your weaknesses. CC told us that she is Mao's target, and he likely saw you as his primary obstacle, because you are currently contracted with her. Given the circumstances surrounding you and Shirley at the time, he likely saw her as a target to draw you in and isolate you away from us. He did try to get Lelouch on a rail car away from me, B, and CC. Rai put in, seeming to agree with Lelouch. So, he tried to kill Shirley right in front of Lelouch then. Colin questioned. Why her? Because he was trying to make me hurt. Lelouch said. He said some things that I never really wanted to hear. Most of the Autobots had disturbed or disgusted looks on their faces. Well, looks like he'd fit right in with the cons. Wheeljack voiced in contempt. Yeah, he seems every bit as sadistic as they are. RC agreed. So, we got a mind-reading psychopath out there that knows most of our secrets. Cliffjumper said. Yeah, this could be really bad. Are there limits to his powers? Ratchet questioned CC, like how Lelouch's Geass has limits. Mao's Geass is very potent. CC explained. He can use it as many times as he wants, and he doesn't need direct eye contact. What about weaknesses? Ironhide questioned. If you press me, I guess it's that he can't turn his power off. CC revealed. Say what? Rai questioned. So, he can't stop reading minds even if he wanted to. Bulkhead questioned. No, in a crowd, he hears all the minds rolling and writhing around him, whether he wants to or not. CC confirmed. So, if he walked into a library, even if everyone's quiet, it's like he's listening to 500 conversations at once. Colin asked. Yes. CC confirmed. Yesh. Cliffjumper winced. I know I like to talk a lot, but I'm not sure even I could handle listening to people talk non-stop 24/7. Coming from you, that says a lot. RC added. And there's another weakness. Lelouch said. Much like with my Geass, he can't read Cybertronian minds. Bumblebee showed up and Mel looked beyond shocked. Yeah, with that whole 500-meter thing, he would have heard me coming a mile away. But he didn't. The Yellow Scout confirmed. Okay, so that gives us something of an advantage. Ironhide said. Guess we can get the jump on the mind reader and he'd never see us coming. Wheeljack grinned. Japan is a rather large country. Ratchet said. The odds of us finding one human out of such a vast population will prove incredibly difficult. Even if we use Kyoto and the other Black Knights, Mao can probably read their minds too and he'd see them coming. RC put in. Regardless, we must find Mao as soon as possible. Optimus said. He has sensitive information, and it is clear that he will stoop to any means necessary to acquire what he wants. He may not be sided with Britannia or Megatron at the moment, but that could still change. All the other Autobots, as well as Lelouch, Rai, and Colin knew Optimus was right. They had to find Mao as quickly as possible. However, there was still one thing Lelouch had to say before they got started. CC, you said Mao and I are your only remaining contractors alive. Lelouch said to the Immortal. Does that mean Rai got his Geass from someone else? That earned a gasp from Colin as well as a shocked expression from all the Autobots present. Even Optimus was more than a little surprised. Rai, you have a Geass? Bulkhead questioned to his partner, who only looked a bit confused. Yeah, apparently. Rai wasn't sure. I had no idea, I swear. It's okay, we believe you. Wheeljack told him sincerely. Probably got before your amnesia. Lelouch, are you certain Rai possess a Geass? Optimus asked. I saw it myself. Rai had ordered Mao to release Shirley right before he could pull the trigger, and he did just that. Lelouch explained. But I thought CC said that you and Mao are her only remaining contractors. Fix-It stated. I did not give Rai his Geass. CC said. So, if you didn't, who did? Cliffjumper asked. This would also imply that there are other people out there who have the ability to grant a Geass. Ratchet assumed as he and Ironhide glanced at CC once more. Again, something you apparently left out. Ironhide casted a distrustful tone towards the Immortal. How many of you are there? Colin questioned in the same sort of tone as well. Aside from myself, there is only one other. He goes by the name VV, and he has the appearance of young boy. CC explained. As I didn't give Rai his Geass, I would assume it came from VV. CC and VV. Do you all go by that? Cliffjumper asked. What? Is there an AA, BB, or RR, DD? Really? You're making jokes now. RC questioned her partner. A young boy, Rai muttered as he felt his head slightly. Does he have long blonde hair and dark pink eyes? CC cast a look of surprise in Ray's direction. That sounds like him. I think I remember. Rai said, getting everyone's attention. You remember something, partner? Bulkhead asked. You got your memories back? Colin asked as well. Well, no, not exactly. Rai tried to describe it. Just images. I do remember a boy with blonde hair so long, it stretched past his legs. And, someone else, a woman and a girl, both were dead. But, that's it. As the Autobots shared concerned expressions, Lelouch had something else to say. There's one more thing to note. He activated his own Geass, knowing it wouldn't affect anyone present. As you can see, my Geass only forms in my left eye. But when I saw Mao, there is a Geass in both his eyes, same goes for Rai. This got everyone's attention as Lelouch looked at CC. Is there a specific reason for that? CC, could I end up like Mao? Unable to turn off my own Geass? He questioned more accusingly to her. Lelouch, Optimus tried to speak. It is a possibility. CC revealed, much to the surprise of the Autobots, as well as Colin and Rai. The more you use your Geass, the more powerful it becomes. Yet another detail you choose to omit. Ratchet added accusingly. Any other secrets you care to reveal? Are you saying you know something like this can happen, and you still offer these kinds of contracts to Lelouch? And to Mao. Colin also seemed a bit angry. You don't even warn them. It's possible, but it's also just as possible to control the power. CC said. Mao ended up the way he did because he couldn't, and it ultimately consumed him. All the good it's gonna do if you don't actually tell them that. Ironhide stated. Whenever you involve yourself with someone, you always tell them the risks. Otherwise it's all gonna fall apart on you. It's no wonder this Mao guy lost his mind. Ironhide's right, you should have at least settled things with Mao, like take his power back, or try to help him instead of just leaving things half-finished. RC exclaimed. And now he's out there with information that can put all our lives at risk. Lelouch began to yell as CC's expression remained unchanged. Okay. Yeah, I can see where CC screwed up, but is yelling at her really gonna solve anything? Bumblebee quickly said. Why are you even defending her, Bumblebee? Ratchet asked. Because she's been through plenty of crazy stuff in her life. You've seen it too, right, Lelouch? Bumblebee reminded the exiled prince, who said nothing in response. Wait, what do you mean you saw it? Colin asked. Lelouch sighed. Back in Narita, when Suzaku had cornered Bumblebee and myself, CC came. Apparently, she fed Suzaku some kind of shock image. We tried to stop her, but when we touched, I guess we saw her memories, or part of it. You know, now that I think about it, if B here saw CC's memories, does that mean Geass powers can affect Cybertronians? Wheeljack questioned. Hey, that's right. Bulkhead put in. When we first looked at Lelouch's, we saw his Geass was puny compared to the Cybertronian spark, which is why it didn't affect us. But if it gets stronger, then there remains a possibility that Geass can affect us. Optimus finished. Yeah, maybe we should focus more on that instead of accusing each other. Cliffjumper seemed to agree. We're not accusing each other. We're accusing her for leaving out important details. RC put in. Cliffjumper is indeed correct, Optimus said. Arguing amongst ourselves is not going to change the situation. Before we deal with Mao, we should see how much stronger Lelouch's Geass has become, as well as the potency of Rei's own Geass. Yeah, that's something I'd like to know, too. Rai raised his hand. Lelouch was understandably angry at CC, and it wasn't just him. Colin, Ratchet, RC, and Ironhide had quickly began to distrust CC, but they knew their allies had a point. They should focus more on what they can do right now, instead of arguing over what hadn't been done in the past. Lelouch, once again, activated his own Geass, which manifested in his left eye. Rai had to take a deep breath and concentrate before he activated his own Geass, which manifested in both of his own eyes. They stood together as Ratchet scanned them both with his arm scanner. Once they had the data necessary, Fixit began to press some commands on his own handheld device as a screen popped up on the ARC's window, with a pulsating blue line above a pulsating red line. Now then, this is our initial scan of Lelouch's Geass before we officially formed the Black Knights. Fixit began. As you can all see, his power is rather minuscule compared to the energy output of the average spark. Now, this is our newer scan. Fixit had put up a second screen, and the red pulse was a bit bigger than before. According to our scan, Lelouch's Geass has indeed gotten more powerful, but not by much. It appears to be only a 7.98% increase, still not powerful enough to affect Cybertronians. I see. Lelouch said. That didn't exactly help though, as they had no data to compare to a Geass like Mao's that ultimately consumed his mind. And this is the reading of Rei's Geass. Fixit said as he brought up a third screen with a pulsating red line, only this one seemed more active, as it would constantly shift from being high and potent, to low and docile, almost randomly. Oh, this is unexpected. Rai didn't like the sound of that. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? With our kind of luck, unexpected typically means bad. Wheeljack commented. From what we can tell, it would seem that Ray's Geass is more erratic. Ratchet tried to explain. When active, it would seem to bounce in between states of power or docility. I can't say for certain whether this can affect Cybertronians, but this isn't something to be taken lightly. Could it maybe have something to do with his amnesia? Colin wondered. I mean, from what we've seen, all Geass stuff comes from the mind, right? Just like amnesia. So maybe Ray's amnesia screwed up his powers. Bulkhead guessed. Well, that doesn't help much. Rai seemed more than a bit nervous, not liking the idea of having a power that he could not control. But, I think I can still turn it on and off just fine. This will require further testing. Optimus said. But Rai, I would strongly encourage you not to use your Geass unless absolutely necessary, at least until we can determine its strengths and weaknesses. No argument here, Rai said. Okay, that's one problem solved. Cliffjumper said for the sake of positivity. What about our other one? RC questioned. Lelouch already seemed to have an idea. We need to find Mao, everything else has to take a back seat until he's been dealt with. Bumblebee, I want you to stay with me at Ashford in case he tries to go after Nunnally or anyone else there. Rai, I want you there with me too. Got it, Bumblebee nodded. Sure thing. Rai nodded as well. Everyone else, search the entire country if you have to. Lelouch told Colin and the other bots. Get the Black Knights and Kyoto on this, but don't tell them about his Geass powers. The second you find him, I need to know. There really is no need for all of that. CC pointed out. Oh, and why is that? RC questioned as she, Ratchet, Colin, and Ironhide glared at the Immortal once more. I already told all of you, I'm Mao's target. Just use me as bait. CC said. Do you have any idea where to find him though? Ironhide questioned. What do you want us to do? Hang a giant neon sign up that says, Free Immortal Women right here, or what? Colin questioned incredulously. CC rolled her eyes before walking toward the exit of the bridge. And where are you going? Ratchet questioned. To find Mao, she said bluntly. Do you even have a plan? Wheeljack questioned. You all have your way of handling things, I have mine. CC said as she had left the bridge, leaving the Autobots and human teenagers present either confused or frustrated. I do not get her. Like, at all. Bulkhead said. Optimus was the first to get everyone back on track. We all know what we must do. Mao has become a dangerous threat, even if he is specifically targeting CC, I fear that he will go to extreme lengths to get what he wants. We cannot let that happen. The next morning, Mao's head was pounding. He wandered throughout the settlement, hearing thousands upon thousands of different thoughts throughout his head. It was like listening to hundreds of endless conversations all at once. This is why he hated cities, too much noise. There was only one solace for him in a place like this. He turned up the volume of the headset he was wearing, which began to play CC's recorded voice in his ears on loop. Do you understand, Mao? Don't worry Mao, I'm not going to die. Mao, Mao, are you awake, Mao? Oh Mao, how silly. An obsessed smile formed on Mao's face. CC, I can't live without you. Wait for me, I'll find you soon. Mao knew however that as long as Lelouch and the Autobots were around her, he'd never get to CC. Fortunately, he knew a way he could have all of his obstacles removed for him. Mao found himself at his destination, just outside the gate toward the ASEEC base, the base where Suzaku was at with the Lancelot, but he wasn't here for any of them. After reading Lelouch's mind, Mao had already learned all he needed to. He knew the location of the Ark, the details regarding all the Autobots and some of his friends in the Black Knights as well as Ashford Academy, but more importantly, he knew everything Lelouch knows about the Decepticons. The gate opened and Mao saw a certain red car began to pull out, but it didn't get very far until Mao approached him. Though Mao couldn't read the mind of the one truly behind the wheel, he knew from Lelouch's mind who this supposed car really was. That's a nice paint job you got there. Mao began. But I suppose you can really get any kind of paint job you want, right? Just scan the car you like and bing bang boom. Must be one of the perks to being a Decepticon and all, right Knockout? Knockout's door suddenly opened as the seatbelts outstretched to ensnare Mao and quickly pull him into the driver's seat before Knockout sped far from the base. It wasn't long before the disguised Decepticon pulled into a long alleyway, far away from any pedestrians that he transformed and held Mao in his grip. "Who are you?" Knockout questioned. "You're not a Britannian and you certainly don't look like a Black Knight." "I'm neither, but I'm honestly surprised a Decepticon could tell the difference. You usually kill people left and right regardless of their nationality, not that I really care or anything like that." Mao commented with a knowing smile. "You didn't answer my question, who are you?" Knockout pressured. Mao kept his smile up. "There lies a bit of a tale, which won't be nearly as interesting to Megatron as this." Using a free hand, Mao lowered his sunglasses to reveal the Geass emblem in both his eyes. "So, take me to your leader." Knockout could only respond with a confused, yet intrigued expression on his face. Ashford Academy. As Colin, Rai, Ogi, and the other Black Knights worked with the Autobots to locate Mao, Bumblebee remained in vehicle mode in the clubhouse parking lot, his scanners keep an eye out for Mao. So far, so good. And while Bumblebee was close outside, Lelouch sat inside with his sister having some tea with Nunnally, while at the same time, he had hidden cameras installed throughout the building as he looked through his laptop. "It's been a long time since we spent time by ourselves, huh?" Nunnally asked. "Well, it's the weekend, even Sayoko needs a little time off now and again," Lelouch said as he continued to look at his laptop for any sign of Mao in the building. He was confident in Bumblebee, but he needed to be sure. "You know, I was surprised you spilled our little secret to Colin," Nunnally said in a teasing yet honest manner. "I mean, I understand Rice since he lives with us but..." "Well, Colin and I have been spending some time with a group of friends who've helped me to see things differently," Lelouch said. "Did they know our secret too?" Nunnally asked. "Yes, they do. But you don't need to worry, Nunnally. I promise they're good people," Lelouch told his sister. Nunnally smiled. "Don't worry big brother, if you say they're good people, I believe you. And if they're helping you, then I'd love to meet them." Lelouch smiled back. "You will, I promise. I'm sure you'd love them." Nemesis. Mao followed Knockout through the halls of the Decepticon warship. He would see different Viacons throughout the base, but he couldn't read any of their minds. This whole ship was completely quiet to him, and he couldn't be any happier. He even turned off the recording of CC in his headset, though he couldn't get enough of her voice. It was nice to think clearly and not have any intruding thoughts in his head. This place was perfect. Though he did hear a few thoughts earlier when entering the Nemesis, guess Megatron had a few human prisoners here, one of which was even Shirley's father, so he was alive after all. But he honestly didn't care, he wasn't here for any of them. Mao was brought to the bridge of the Nemesis, with only 2 other Decepticons occupying it. Mao could already identify them after reading Lelouch's mind, Soundwave and Megatron. And while the leader of the Decepticons was intimidating to normally anyone, Mao wasn't the least bit nervous, not when he had some important cards in his hand that he knew Megatron couldn't resist. Megatron turned to see Knockout enter the bridge but was surprised to see a human with him. He clearly wasn't Britannian. "Knockout, who is this human and why have you brought him here?" Megatron questioned. "Forgive me, Lord Megatron, but he knows about us. He knows, quite a bit actually," Knockout confessed. "Call me Mao, and I have a very interesting proposal for you, Megatron." Mao made a confident bow as he spoke. "Tell me, you've been around Earth for quite some time. But have you ever seen a human who has this?" Mao took off his visor to reveal his Geass. Megatron had a raised eyebrow. It was certainly something he hadn't seen before, but not exactly something noteworthy, but nonetheless, allowed Mao to continue. "It's called a Geass, and it lets people have special powers. My Geass allows me to read minds," Mao explained. "Oh really?" Knockout questioned skeptically. "What am I thinking right now?" "No idea," Mao replied. "You literally just said, 'I can only read human minds, Doc,'" Mao told the red Decepticon. "For some reason, I can't read Cybertronian minds. So, tell me, Megatron, have you known anyone who can read minds before? Even among your Decepticons?" Megatron did not answer that question, but he had never seen that kind of ability before. However, what really got his attention was the word, Geass, which he heard before when Shockwave brought him those human scientists after Soundwave downloaded the information from that Code R laboratory, though the information they had was limited. Tell me about this Geass, are you the only human who possess it? Megatron questioned. And how is obtained? Were you born with this ability? Nope, it was given to me. Mouse said with a grin, thinking he had Megatron. And I'm not the only one who has it, so far as I know, only 2 others have it, one of which happens to be Zero. That really got the Decepticons' attention. So, you're saying Zero can read minds too? Knockout questioned. No, each person has a different Geass power. That's just how it works. Mouse said. You said the ability was given to you. By whom? Megatron questioned. She calls herself CC and she's no ordinary human. Mouse said. Megatron had heard that name before as he turned to Soundwave with a nod. The silent Decepticon's faceplate showed the image of CC acquired from Code R. The minute Mouse saw her image, an excited smile formed on his face. Yes, that's her. And she has the ability to grant this, Geass, to others as well, and has even granted one to Zero. Megatron mused. Oh yes, and I would be willing to help you remove that common thorn from both our sides. Mao offered. And just how do you plan to do that? Knockout questioned further. Because I know who Zero is. Mao revealed, surprising Knockout, and even Megatron raised an eyebrow. I also know a few things about Optimus that I'm sure you'll find useful, something that not even Britannia can give you. And what is it you wish in return for this information? Megatron suspected Mao had an ulterior motive behind him. I want CC, Mao said with a triumphant smirk. And, I want my own place here, far away from Earth. So, do we have a deal? Camelot Division, later that evening. A medical checkup. Suzaku asked as he put his school uniform back on. Just regulations. Cecile told him. It's required for all Nightmare pilots. I understand. Suzaku nodded. Good, tomorrow then, after your school gets out. Cecile already had it scheduled. Truth is, she had hoped this would help him to ease his conscience a bit as he was starting to become a bit obsessive, especially since joining the Decepticons. Right, thanks. Suzaku said. Oh, Miss Cecile, do you know of any way I could get in to see Princess Euphemia? You know, you could have spoken with her already given she helped us with our last monster hunt. Lloyd told Suzaku. Speaking of which, who is that Spider-Con anyway? He asked with an intrigued look on his face. Did the big bad Megatron tell you about it? Suzaku was surprised a bit by that question, but Cecile looked more so annoyed. Lloyd, are you asking that now? After what that monster did in the ghettos? Pardon me, but I've never seen a Cybertronian with insect-like features, so it's really caught my interest. Lloyd said casually. Her name's Arachnid, Suzaku said with a sense of unease in his voice. From what Dreadwing has said, she used to be a Decepticon, but now she's gone rogue. His fists clenched as he remembered clearly just what she did to all those people in the ghettos. But I will bring her in. Cecile looked with Suzaku in concern, while Lloyd just looked more intrigued. Well, when you do, let me know. I'd love to get a good look at her. So, about Princess Euphemia. Suzaku felt the need to change the subject. Forget it, you have to at least be a Knight of Honor to get an audience with her. Lloyd said. But an Earl could arrange it, if he really wanted to. Cecile told him. Who, me? Yes. Suzaku honestly did not see that coming. Lloyd, you're an Earl. You never told me that. Lloyd laughed. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. The prodigal son of nobles, he really can't separate work from play. Cecile explained. Suzaku still looked in comic shock. Wow. Ashford Academy, the next day. Increased security. Millie asked in surprise. I think it would at least help the rest of the academy feel safer. Lelouch explained. What with what's going on between these giant transforming robots and all the military activity? Well, I could talk to my grandfather about it, but Millie's eyes widened slightly. Did somebody find out you're a prince? Hopefully that secret's still safe, only the Ashford family knows about me and Nunnally. Lelouch looked down slightly. Millie, listen, I never really did thank you for that. It's because of you and your family that we even have a roof over our heads. You may have very well saved our lives. So, thank you. Millie was genuinely surprised by what Lelouch said, but a small smile formed on her face. Lelouch, no matter what, I'm your friend, and if there's anything you need me for, I promise I'll help. I truly appreciate that, Lelouch said honestly. The blonde chuckled slightly. You know how you could repay me, by finding a way to get me out of this blind date my parents have set up for me. Millie joked, earning a chuckle from Lelouch. You know, you've really changed, haven't you? She got his attention. I can't explain it, but ever since Rai and Suzaku came here, you've been very different. You used to just go through the motions, like you didn't really care about anything. But now, it's different. Lelouch had a small smile. I met someone, who helped me to understand a few things about myself, and what I can do to change. Before Millie could ask what it was that he meant, she heard a familiar voice call her. Maiden President. Shirley walked onto the scene. Oh, hey Shirley. You doing okay? Millie asked. Yeah, just fine, Shirley answered. Are you sure? Lelouch asked. After everything. Shirley knew what Lelouch meant by that, and there was a part of her that was still trying to process everything that happened, but after a couple days, she seemed to relax. Don't worry Lulu, I'm fine, really. She told him. Millie seemed confused at first before a teasing grin formed on her face. Oh, is there something special going on between you two? Shirley's face blushed. What? No. Millie, it's not anything like that. She knows. Lelouch said right away. She knows about me and Nunnally, I told her. That completely caught Millie by surprise. I met up with her in Shinjuku and it just slipped out. Lelouch tried to explain it while leaving out some crucial details. But she knows. I promise I'm not going to tell anyone. Who'd believe me, anyway? Shirley tried to laugh nervously, more so to Millie. I understand. I believe you, Shirley, I just didn't quite expect Lelouch to. I know what it's like to lose someone you love, and also, I haven't realized till then, how much I've been taking my friends for granted. But that's about to change. Lelouch said with a straightforward face. Shirley had something of a sympathetic and understanding expression on her face as she put a hand on Lelouch's shoulder. Even Millie had a similar expression before she genuinely smiled. Like I've said, you've really changed Lelouch. The blonde said. Just be careful, not everyone is so considerate. Lelouch grimaced. Trust me, I know. Millie really had no idea just how true that was. Hey, you seen a guy named Mao around? Tamaki questioned a few people in the ghettos as he sat in the vehicle mode of Wheeljack. This was happening all over as a few bots and Black Knights were searching through the ghettos across Japan for any sign of Mao. Colin rolled with RC, Rai, Inoue, and a few others rode with Bulkhead, Sugiyama, Minami, and Yoshida rode with Ironhide. Even Cliffjumper drove around with some Black Knights himself. Though the Black Knights weren't told about Mao's Geass, they were told that he knows about Zero's identity as well as critical information regarding the Autobots. Despite some vagueness, the Black Knights knew they could trust Zero and the Autobots, so they would continue to look. But they weren't the only ones searching. CC had pressed a man by his throat with her foot to the wall in an alleyway. I'm not looking for a refrain dealer. I said a Chinese guy named Mao. Did you hear me? CC interrogated. Believe me, I have no idea, the only Chinese around here are the pushers or gang labor. Go ask the cops or something. I don't like cops, CC said as she pressed her foot even harder. Then ask the Black Knights about him, they're all over the underground. They're wired into the settlement and the ghettos. Everyone tells me the same thing. CC commented as this was the same answer she got ever since she left the Ark a couple of days ago. 'Cause it's obvious. Ashford Academy. Shirley had just walked out of the school and was about to head home, when she saw a blue motorcycle pull up with a certain someone in a blue motorcycle pulled up. Hey Shirley. Colin greeted as she wore a red leather suit with a red biker's helmet. Colin. Shirley didn't expect to see her. And R3 right. She tried to get the Autobot's name right. RC. The blue fembot corrected. Right, sorry. Shirley apologized. You doing alright? Colin asked. Yeah. Do you need something? Shirley asked. Well, I was wondering if you wanted to come over to my place and, maybe just talk and hang out. Colin asked. Really? Shirley asked in surprise. Yeah, we haven't really known each other at all, and I'd like to change that a bit. Colin said. I'd like for you to get to know the real me. Shirley had already known Colin was a Black Knight after Lelouch took her to the Ark after their encounter with Mao, but she still wasn't quite used to it, so this was a bit of a surprise to her. Plus, we haven't located Mao yet, so, just in case he thought about coming after you again, I think you'd be better off with us for now. RC also added. Oh, okay. You still haven't found him, yet? Shirley asked. Apparently, he's really good at hiding. RC commented with an annoyed sigh. Don't worry, we'll find him, and if you're with us, we won't let him hurt you again. I promise. Colin smiled honestly as she offered Shirley a hand. Shirley hesitated for a second, not that she distrusted Colin, but she wasn't completely used to all this yet. But after a second or two, she accepted Colin's hand. The redhead handed Shirley an extra helmet as she got onto RC. I've never ridden a motorcycle before, so, Shirley said. Just hang on tight, Colin told her as Shirley wrapped her arms around her friend as RC drove off. Suzaku had just left the hospital with Cecile. The checkup went just fine. Physically he was completely healthy, and carried positive traits for a soldier. So, it didn't seem like there was a whole lot to worry about. Well, that went well. Suzaku commented. Yes, but, if it's alright with you, Suzaku, I think it's best you take a break from your duties. Just to give your mind time to recover. Cecile told him. Sure, Suzaku was a bit unsure of how to appropriately respond to that. Suzaku. Both he and Cecile were caught by surprise as a certain pink-haired royal met with them, along with a pair of bodyguards. But she didn't wear any of her royal attire, just some casual clothes consisting of an orange sweater, a white mini-skirt with heels, and a hat with a pair of glasses. Princess Euphemia, Suzaku exclaimed in surprise, and even Cecile was caught off guard. SSSH. Yuffie put a finger over her mouth. I don't want to make a fuss. You wouldn't believe all the trouble I'd get with paparazzi. Sorry. Suzaku apologized. Is there anything I can do for you? I was wondering if you wanted to just come with me. Euphemia asked somewhat nervously. Is there a mission? Suzaku asked. No missions. No military duties or anything, just you and me, maybe walking around the settlement, maybe some ice cream too. Euphemia asked. Really? Suzaku did not expect that. Like how we first met? Euphemia asked. Oh, I'm not sure if. Suzaku wasn't entirely sure how to respond to this. A Britannian princess was asking if he'd like to spend time with her. Not anything military related, but rather just hanging out and maybe even having some fun. I think it's a good idea. Cecile said quickly, thinking this could be good for Suzaku. Miss Cecile. Suzaku, I think you should go with her. Cecile continued. We did talk about you taking some time off to recover. Well, yes, but before Suzaku could say anything, he felt Euphemia gently grip his hand. Though she tried to maintain a straight face, he could see something in her eyes that was almost begging him to come with her. And that was all that was needed to break his resolve. You know what? Sure, let's go. Yuffie did her best to contain her excited emotions as she simply smiled. Then let's go. She practically pulled Suzaku away as her guards followed them, all the while Cecile had something of a knowing smile on her face, having a good idea what was going on between them. Meanwhile, Toto, along with Chiba and Asahina were at the rendezvous point, the grave of former Japan Prime Minister, Genbu Kururugi. Urabe and Senba are late. Chiba commented. Well, this sure is an ironic meeting place, isn't it? Asahina also commented. The grave of Prime Minister, Kururugi. The traitor who told us to fight to the end, then committed suicide himself. Chiba voiced in contempt. Enough. Toto silenced the two. General Kataise also committed suicide and he was a true patriot. That was the official story on what happened at Port Yokosuka, but he heard rumors of the Black Knights and Autobots being there, and after what happened at Naratia, he doubted that Kataise truly committed suicide, or was even dead at all, that is if Zero was who he thought he was. I should have known you'd try to seek revenge. Something of a small smirk formed on Toto's face. I only wish I can see you myself to see if it's really you, Lelouch. However, unbeknownst to him or either of his comrades, Toto was being watched. Fugitive Toto identified. All units, prepare to move in. The Ark, the bridge. We've read through your proposal of reorganizing the Black Knights. Ratchet spoke over the communications. I have some changes myself I'd like to implement, but overall, this is a good structure. I'll contact you with the final iteration by tomorrow. Thanks, I appreciate that. Diethard contacted from the other line. We'll work on how implement the cell-based structures another time. That is all. Ratchet hung up. Well, seems as though we were wrong about Diethard. Fixit said as he and Optimus were the only ones on the bridge aside from Ratchet. He seems quite acquitted, submitted, committed. He may not be a spy, but there's something about him I just don't like. Ratchet said honestly. Perhaps, although his connections could make him a valuable asset. Optimus replied. But regardless, we'll be certain to keep an eye on him. Good to know something's going smoothly right now. The three Autobots saw Lelouch enter the bridge. Lelouch, when did you get here? Ratchet asked. He recently asked me for a ground bridge. Fixit answered. Bumblebee will remain at the clubhouse to watch over Nunnally in case Mao shows up. Lelouch added. Speaking of which, still no sign of him. I'm afraid not. Optimus confirmed. Despite our efforts, we still have yet to locate Mao. This only seemed to make Lelouch more frustrated. He can't read any of your minds, but all the good that's gonna do if we can't find him. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I agree, Ratchet said. Having a wild card out in the open like this with such sensitive information is something that we cannot afford right now. We will find him, Optimus stated, but we must not afford to lose our heads. My head is firmly attached to my body, so I think I'm alright. Fixit said. It's an expression, Fixit. Lelouch told the mini-con, but even words from Optimus did little to deter his frustration. I feel like we could put Mao in check right now if we had just one missing piece. CC revealed herself as she stepped onto the bridge. Seems like we're all on the same page. When did you get here? Ratchet questioned. I snuck in through the same ground bridge portal Lelouch entered. CC commented. We've been unable to find Mao separately, so the logical choice would be for us to work together, don't you agree? Yes, that may be for the best. Optimus seemed to agree. Suddenly, Lelouch's cell phone began to ring. He checked the caller ID and saw it was a no number. Having a good idea who it was, he looked up to Optimus, who simply nodded. Lelouch then answered it. Hello. It's me, Lulu. Mao teased on the other side of the line. Lelouch need only look to Optimus, Ratchet, and Fixit to confirm who it was on the other line, as they all had serious expressions. CC's there, isn't she? I want to talk to her alone, put her on. Lelouch handed the phone to CC just as Optimus looked to Ratchet with a nod. The Autobot medic quickly pressed several key commands on the console, bringing up the phone line on the speakers for the bridge, allowing everyone present to hear the conversation. It's me, CC. Mao. CC acknowledged as she turned away from Lelouch and the Autobots to hide a conflicted look on her face. I'll be at Clavisland, come alone. CC sighed in annoyance. You're as selfish as ever, I see. If you don't come, I'll just have to tell Megatron who Lelouch really is. Mao told her, much to the surprise of Lelouch, Fixit, and Ratchet, while Optimus just maintained a stoic expression. Oh, and just in case the Autobots are listening to this, which they probably are, I haven't told Megatron about the Ark or where it is, yet. I'm keeping those cards close to my chest. But if I see any of you anywhere near Clavisland, I'll tell Megatron. And I'll watch with a bowl of popcorn as he and his army lay waste to your precious Ark. I'll be there, and they won't bother you, Mao. CC told him. You promise? I promise, CC said before hanging up. You're not thinking of going there, are you? Ratchet exclaimed. I don't necessarily have a choice in the matter. CC pointed out. From the way Mao spoke, it seems as though he's made contact with Megatron. Fixit stated. We have no way of knowing what he said to him though. Lelouch grimaced as he could think of over 100 different scenarios right now, and all of them had undesirable outcomes. However, I do not believe Megatron is aware of your identity, Lelouch, nor does he know the Ark's location. Optimus assumed. Perhaps, otherwise we'd be under attack at the moment. Ratchet seemed to agree. That being said, I believe we must also assume that Mao has likely given information to Megatron that he may have found intriguing, perhaps the concept of Geass. Optimus continued to assume. Fixit gulped. I can't imagine what he'd do with information like that. All the more reason for me to deal with Mao right away. CC pointed out. Are you seriously handing yourself over to him? Lelouch yelled. What if Mao told Megatron about you? You could be the Decepticons' primary target. I'm not handing myself over. CC said. I said I was going to deal with Mao, and I mean that in a way he can no longer bother us. It didn't take a genius to figure out what she meant by that statement. You mean termination? Optimus asked. Yes. CC confirmed. You were all right. I should not have left things half-finished with Mao, so I intend to fix that. A logical choice. He knows far too much. Ratchet concluded. But we can't run the risk of Megatron getting his hands on CC either. Lelouch argued. You needn't be concerned for me, I'm plenty good when it comes to hiding. I've lived long enough to know how. CC put in. You're leaving? Optimus asked. It's not like I've really contributed to your war. CC said. I'm no Solider, so there really isn't any need in me staying here. I can't risk that, we can't risk that. Lelouch said as he activated his Geass. CC, stay here, don't go. Optimus looked to Lelouch with concern, as did Fixit and Ratchet. The medic and Minicon were unsure of how Lelouch's Geass would react with CC seeing how she granted the ability, though Optimus was more concerned with why Lelouch would resort to using a Geass on CC. On the surface, it made sense to keep her away from Megatron, but he couldn't help but feel there was some other reason, something more personal. Geass does not work on me. CC said as Lelouch grunted. It seems rather logical. Ratchet put in. I've theorized that it wouldn't work on her seeing as how she gave you your ability, Lelouch. But Geass isn't the only means to stop me. You have two giant robots with you that can so easily crush me literally underfoot. CC put in. And you don't have to worry, I've survived worse. So, I suppose the real question is, Optimus. She looked to the Autobot leader directly. Do you intend to force me to stay here? Optimus had a look of understanding. If you believe you have no place here, then you may leave. You are not a prisoner. Optimus. Lelouch exclaimed, not agreeing with his choice at all. This is her choice, we have no right to strip it from her. Optimus told the young revolutionary. Thank you. It's been fun, I'll say that at least. CC said as she was about to walk out. Fix it, I'll need a ground bridge. Yes, of course. Fixit pulled out his remote and pressed the necessary buttons. Alright, the portal should be all set for you. Farewell, and good luck with your little war. CC gave a final wave as she left the bridge. Why are we just letting her go? Lelouch questioned, looking at the Prime directly. Optimus, you know Megatron, do you really think he'd pass up an opportunity like this? No, he would not. Optimus confirmed. If I were in Megatron's place, I would be quite intrigued with CC myself. Ratchet added. I can only imagine just what he could do with an ability like Geass. Just thinking about that makes me feel even more glitchy than normal. Fixit shivered. So, you just let CC leave with a risk that grave? Lelouch exclaimed. No, because I know you won't. Optimus said, surprising the former prince as Optimus continued. Lelouch, I know you can defeat Mao. He may be able to read your mind, but I also know you're smart enough to find a way to work around it. I understand how you might feel towards this, you are taking this risk very seriously and I can respect that, but you cannot allow your emotions to cloud your judgment. Unlike myself, or anyone else in our organization, be they Black Knight or Autobot, you've met Mao face to face, you've seen how he acts, use your strategic mind, analyze what you know about Mao and find a solution. I know you are capable of doing just that. If you need assistance, I will provide you with it, we all will. Lelouch was rendered completely speechless. Optimus had just told him that he believes in him and what he can do. A part of himself honestly felt truly touched by this. He wouldn't admit this aloud, but Mao was right about one thing. Lelouch had admired Optimus a great deal, up to the point that he considered him a father figure, one far more fitting than the likes of his biological father. He truly admired Optimus for his strength, strategy, experience, and even his ideals, so much so that it was starting to rub off on him. Lelouch smiled inwardly, making a silent promise not to disappoint the Prime that he admired so much. Alright, I think I might have an idea. Lelouch began, causing Optimus to smile slightly. Should I contact the other Autobots, or the Black Knights? Fixit offered. No, if this works, we won't need any of them. Lelouch said. In fact, the only one I'll really need is Ratchet. Me? The Autobot medic questioned. Yes, more specifically, your vehicle mode. Lelouch confirmed. So, I trust then you have a plan. Optimus asked, to which Lelouch could only reply with a knowing smirk. Colin's residence. Here you go, Shirley. Colin handed the orange-haired schoolgirl some tea. It's instant tea, I'm not really good at making the real thing. Thank you. Shirley smiled as she accepted it. She had spent much of the evening in Colin's apartment and had taken the chance to get to know the real Colin, not that sickly facade of a girl she thought she knew. She even got to meet Colin's birth mother, who was really happy to see Colin had brought a friend over, though Mrs. Kazuki had to go to sleep rather early. Colin explained her mother's involvement with Refrain, and while she is recovering and getting the help she needs for rehabilitation, she needs plenty of bedrest. Colin had also explained what had happened to her brother, and how that was the reason she was even fighting Britannia to begin with, to which Shirley expressed her utmost sympathy, which Colin was grateful for. You know, Colin, I really don't know why you tried so hard to pretend to be sick. Shirley said to her as the redhead sat down on the couch with her. I really like this active personality of yours, it makes you feel fun. Yeah, I really hate acting like that too. Colin smirked. But I'm glad I can be myself around the other Black Knights and the Autobots. They're your friends? Shirley asked. Yeah. Colin nodded as she picked up a framed picture of herself, her brother, and Ogi. This guy right here, Ogi, he's almost like family. He and Naoto were best friends growing up, and I got to know him myself. What about your motorcycle, I mean, RC? Shirley asked. She's my partner, actually. She's more like an older sister. Colin confessed. Protective, but very reliable. She's always there for me, and it's not just her. That red Autobot, Cliffjumper, he's her partner, and by extension, my partner too. And, now that I think about it, he's actually a lot like Naoto, overall friendly, a sense of humor, the only difference is that Cliff doesn't know when to shut up. She chuckled. Even Shirley giggled a bit. When Lelouch had me first meet the Autobots, I was a bit overwhelmed, who wouldn't be? But now, after hearing how close you are to them, it makes me want to get to know them. They just seem so friendly, and that big one. Optimus. Colin said. Yeah, he's like a superhero. It's hard to describe. I know the feeling, he does give off that sort of impression, doesn't he? Colin replied. Shirley's smile faded into confusion, however. But, while they can all talk, I noticed Bumblebee, why does he speak with bleep? Colin grimaced. Ogi had told her after he, Tamaki, and Ratchet brought Valletta back from Port Yokosuka. There's a reason for that. During the war for Cybertron, the poor guy had his voice box torn out by Megatron, the Decepticon leader. Shirley gasped as she instinctively grabbed her own throat. That's horrible. The redhead gave a slight scoff. You think that's awful? I had the pleasure of meeting a Decepticon face-to-face who was a real monster. Colin's fists clenched in anger as she remembered Arachnid, but it wasn't just her. I honestly never thought I'd meet someone who's even worse than Britannia. At least with them, I know there's some good people. Hell, Lelouch and Nunnally are freaking royalty, and I thought those guys were the scum of the earth. But, the cons, a butcher, a backstabber, an assassin, and so many others who love to kill, who loved to destroy, and had no qualms at all about destroying their own home. How can anyone like that exist? Shirley was slightly taken aback by Colin's attitude as she saw the clear emotion in her eyes. I am not going to let them get away with any of that. Colin continued. And I won't let them bring that kind of destruction to Earth. It's not just about Japan anymore, it's so much more. Shirley, I am not going to let the Decepticons win, I'll do everything in my power to stop them. I swear it. The schoolgirl seemed to understand. When she first heard about Lelouch's identity as the former prince, and what happened to his mother and Nunnally, which was why his father exiled them, she wasn't sure how to respond. But after taking some time to process and think it over, it made sense why he'd become Zero, and why he even has this Geass power. It wasn't just out of revenge, it was destroy a world where the weak and helpless are always sacrificed and trampled upon. And after learning what happened to Colin's family, Shirley knew that it wasn't just Lelouch who was suffering. Countless people in Japan had lost their homes, families, and even lives to Britannia. She honestly felt ashamed to be a Britannian. Of course, she knew that there were still good people in Britannia, such as her mother and her friends on the student council, but she can no longer follow that monster of an emperor. And from everything she's had, these Decepticons are even worse. They torture and kill, and thoroughly enjoy it, even the destruction of their own home. Shirley's fist soon clenched into determination as she came to a decision. I want to help. Colin looked to Shirley in surprise. What? I said I want to help. Shirley began. After learning everything, about the Autobots, Lelouch, you, and the Black Knights, and about Britannia and these Decepticons, after finally knowing all that, I can't imagine sitting by and doing nothing anymore. I want to help you, all of you. She clenched both of Colin's hands into her own and said 8 words that Colin would never expect. Colin, I want to join the Black Knights. Tokyo Settlement. Suzaku had spent about 2 hours or so with Euphemia. They really had no destination in mind as they wandered around the settlement. Per her orders, Euphemia's guards kept their distance, but still maintained a close eye on her. And so far, her disguise appeared to be working as nobody recognized her. Suzaku, for the most part, seemed to enjoy her company. It honestly felt much like when he first met her before realizing she was a princess, and needless to say, he liked it. There was a part of him that had come to see Euphemia as a friend, and while he did hold a great deal of respect for her, he felt as though he needn't push it to become personal as he was an 11th soldier and she was Britannian royalty. The two sat on a nearby park bench to rest their legs after wandering so long. This feels nice, Euphemia confessed honestly. Between all the politics, as well as all the fighting, it feels good not to worry about that, at least for a short amount of time anyway. Yeah, I guess it does. Suzaku seemed to agree. Yuffie smiled in his direction, however her smile faded when she noticed the Decepticon pin still attached to his uniform. Seeing that made her experience a whole new feeling of discomfort. Suzaku noticed the changed expression on her face. Prink, I mean, Yuffie, are you alright? He asked. Suzaku, I don't want you working with the Decepticons anymore. Euphemia told him. The honorary Britannian couldn't contain his surprised gasp. What? I'm not comfortable with you working with them. Euphemia began. I honestly don't believe they are who they say they are. But Dreadwing has, Suzaku tried to speak. I trust Dreadwing, Euphemia said honestly. I can safely say that I trust Dreadwing completely, enough so that I've allowed him to act as my bodyguard until I can find my own knight. But, he's the only one I can trust. I can't help but get this horrible feeling whenever I'm around them. And, wasn't that monster you fought in the ghettos also a Decepticon? A former Decepticon, Suzaku said immediately. She's a rogue, acting completely on her own. And I'm going to bring her in even if it's the last thing I do. But it's not just that one. Euphemia continued. After Naratia, Cornelia and I had a meeting with the Decepticons, particularly Megatron and Starscream, on how to handle the Black Knights and the Autobots. Do you know what Starscream suggested? That we'd completely destroy this entire country and everyone in it. Britannians and 11s. Suzaku couldn't contain his own gasp. The fact that Megatron allows someone like him, as his second in command, doesn't that make you feel that he's not who he says he is? But, Megatron didn't allow it, right? Suzaku tried to provide a defense. Shouldn't that also say something? I'll admit that, I don't agree with Starscream. What he suggested was horrible, but, maybe if Zero and the Autobots stopped fighting, we'd find a solution to all of this together. Euphemia looked to Suzaku with concern. Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side? What do you mean? Suzaku asked with a serious expression. I mean, that maybe, the Black Knights and the Autobots are right to stand against us. Euphemia began to voice her personal opinion. Look all that Britannia has been doing, not just to Japan, but all across the world. We invade nations, destroy their livelihoods and cultures, and try to make another reflection of our own. Japan didn't do anything, we're the ones who declared war on them and attacked in the first place. But Britannia also rebuilt Japan, Suzaku tried to argue. Not all of it, Euphemia countered. What about all the ghettos, or the fact that innocent people have to earn their rights back? Rights that, honestly, should never have been taken away. Britannia isn't perfect, I can admit that. Suzaku said. But, it can change for the better. It has the potential to do just that. I mean, you're a princess. The fact that you've just said how you don't approve of all this violence shows that Britannia isn't all bad. Euphemia's expression didn't brighten, but rather, she grimaced even further. Suzaku, can I confess something to you? Something, very personal. Of course. Suzaku was listening. I hate being a princess. Suzaku looked at Euphemia as if she had grown a second head. He had never thought he'd ever hear those words come from her mouth. I hate being a royal to Britannia, but more than anything, I hate my father even more. Euphemia confessed honestly. That man, I don't think there's even an ounce of humanity in him at all. He has us invade so many countries, taking, stealing, killing, all for progress and power, so many people die because of him and he doesn't even care. And it's not just other countries, even his own family. You heard what he said about Clovis during his funeral, he didn't even shed a tear for him, just saying his death, my brother's death, was just another march toward progress. And you've known Lelouch and Nunnally, right? Your family took care of them. Suzaku could only respond with a nod as Euphemia continued. Do you know why they were even sent to Japan? Yuffie continued as her voice became more emotional. It was because their mother was killed. Lady Marianne, I even loved her, almost like a second mother, and Nunnally, dear sweet Nunnally, lost her eyes and legs because of that. And how did our father respond? He sent Lelouch and Nunnally away, because he had no use for them. Yuffie was on the verge of crying. And he even ordered for Japan to be invaded, knowing they would probably die, but he didn't care. He didn't even bother to investigate Lady Marianne's death. Tears were already streaming down Yuffie's eyes. Whenever I look around at the settlement, I see Lelouch's face, I see Nunnally's face, and I can only imagine how scared they were before I'm a princess, and I couldn't do anything to help them. I hate myself every day for that. She pressed her hands against her face as she let her tears flow freely. Suzaku looked with an expression of surprise and utter sympathy. There was a part of him that considered telling her about Lelouch and Nunnally, that they were alive, and she could see them. But he didn't want to run the risk of their identities getting leaked to the media, or to someone who could take full advantage of them. He wasn't sure what to say to Yuffie that could help comfort her, no matter how much he wanted to. But that's what he ended up doing as he put a hand on her shoulder, and she looked at him with puffy red eyes. I don't really know what to say. Suzaku began. I feel humbled that you choose to confide all this with me. And I am so sorry you feel this way, but don't hate yourself. None of that is your fault. You didn't send them here, you weren't the one who attacked Japan, it wasn't you. And I'm sure they wouldn't want you to blame yourself either. You're a good person, someone who wants to change the world for the better, and I want to help in any way I can. Suzaku had a genuine smile. I promise, if you need me for anything at all, I'll be here for you. I promise, Yuffie. Yuffie looked toward Suzaku with an emotional expression. He had just addressed her as Yuffie, rather than Princess or Sub-Viceroy Euphemia, and reached out to her as a friend, not as a soldier to royalty. That was enough for Euphemia to wrap her arms around Suzaku and bury her face into his shoulder as she continued to cry, but not just sorrow, but tears of joy as well, as she knew that she had a true friend in Suzaku that she could trust completely. Suzaku embraced her back, giving her the comfort she needs with a genuine smile. However, as he did, he couldn't help but recall what she said on not just Britannia, but the Decepticons too, as the words of both Starscream and Arachnid continued to play in his mind. As your commanding officer, I am ordering you to execute this Black Knight now. Oluki, an idealist. I didn't think the Decepticons had any left. Kururugi will have the honor of executing them. Unfortunately, you're on a side that thrives of killing idealism. The more he dwelled on these memories, the more he began to realize that for the first time in his life, he began to have second thoughts about the path he chose. Once he felt that, the words of Optimus Prime surfaced once more. What if you go down this path, and you're wrong? Clavisland. The amusement park was closed, even the employees and workers had all gone home for the evening. So it was pitch black, with only one single soul in the park all alone. CC had arrived just as she promised Mao, and she didn't bring any Autobots or Black Knights with her. Now all she'd need to was wait for Mao himself to arrive. Apparently, CC didn't need to wait very long as lights around the amusement park suddenly came on, starting with the street lamps, followed by all the rides, such as the Ferris wheel, or even the merry-go-round which began to run and play lullaby music. Mao appeared to ride on one of the horses of the merry-go-round as he called to her with a childish smile. "CC, your mind is so quiet. It's the only human mind I can't read. Aside from Cybertronians, obviously," CC said. "And that's what makes them so perfect." Mao continued to ride the merry-go-round. "I'm a prince on a white stallion, here to rescue his princess and take her back to our castle and live happily ever after." He got off the ride as it came to a stop. "Doesn't that make you happy, CC?" "Mao, we talked about this before," she tried to tell him. "I told you that you and I." "Those are all lies, lies." Mao interrupted. "CC, you love me, and this is how I know." He took off his headphones so that CC could hear her recorded voice. "Thank you, Mao, 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 stop it," she exclaimed, but Mao didn't seem to listen to her. "CC, you're the only one. The only one I want, forever. Lelouch doesn't matter, the Autobots don't matter either. Just forget them. If you just come with me." "I said stop it," CC shouted as she pulled out a pistol and pointed it directly at Mao, much to his shock. "I should have done this a long time ago." She was just about to pull the trigger, when something inside her forced her to stop. Her memories of Mao in his childhood came back to her. "Since my mind is the only one you can't read, and you can only be happy when you're with me, I will stay with you always. Yes, I'm right here, so you don't need to worry." No matter how much she tried to deny it, she did love Mao back then. She had developed a genuine bond with him, and even considered him her child. It was that hesitance that gave Mao an opening to pull his own gun and shoot her in the shoulder, forcing her to drop her gun and fall to her knees as she held her bleeding shoulder. "I knew it. I knew you couldn't pull the trigger. That's 'cause you really love me, CC." He laughed in a manner that was both childish and maniacal as he clapped his hands. "You're wrong. I was just using you right from the start," she exclaimed almost desperately. This caused Mao's insane smile to vanish. "What are you saying? You shouldn't tell lies like that. You really shouldn't." He shot her again in her other shoulder. "Lies are very, very wicked. Wicked lies." He shot her multiple times, in her arms and legs. "Don't worry. I understand." He finally put the gun down. "CC, you must listen. I made a deal with Megatron. He told me he could build us a house on the moon for us, just you and me. Since it's on the moon, there are no people there, so it'll be nice and quiet and perfect for us. But, the thing is CC, Megatron wants a sample of you to study, and he's not exactly someone you can say no to." CC looked with a fearful expression as Mao walked off to the side to grab a chainsaw from around the corner. "So, I'm going to give him a sample," he exclaimed as a crazed smile formed on his face. "Don't worry, I'll just cut off a hand, and not one of your lovely legs. You've been shot before and you can heal, so you can grow your hand back too." Mao cut down a sign with the chainsaw, almost for emphasis. "Is this your revenge? You're punishing me?" CC asked as fear began to seep into her voice. "Oh no," Mao replied as his childlike smile was still present on his face. I'm not at all. I'm showing you my gratitude." "So, Clavisland, huh?" Both of them directed their attention to the television screens that suddenly turned on and showed the image of the masked revolutionary known as Zero as he spoke. "It makes sense, a place where no one else's thoughts to bother you." "Lelouch," Mao growled as CC looked in surprise, even more so that Lelouch was apparently dressed in his Zero attire. "Since your Geass has a total maximum range of 500 meters, it can't reach me here at the Ark." Mao laughed and clapped his hands. "That's true, that's very true. But what can you do from all the way over there? And why are you wearing that dumb costume anyway? Thinking the Decepticons are watching, and you want to hide your face? I could just say your full name right here and now, you know." "How do you know they're not watching? You wanna send in the Autobots to crush me like a bug, seeing how I can't read their minds either?" Zero didn't seem to respond. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue. If you want CC then." "Mao, think." Zero interrupted. "You don't believe CC's her real name, do you? She never even whispers it to anyone." That caught Mao by surprise as he glanced at CC's fallen form. "But I know it though, she told me her true name. In fact, all the Autobots, and even a few of the Black Knights know it. Mao appeared saddened and almost betrayed by this revelation. Is that right, CC? You never told me, ever. But you told it to them. You know why? Zero continued. Because CC is mine. CC belongs to me in every possible way. No. Mao exclaimed in anger as he walked closer to the screens. She doesn't. She was mine long before she met you. I have gained every single thing from her. Including all of the parts that you have never seen. Mao stumbled back at that. All of them. That really hit Mao where it hurts. Lelouch, he growled as he revved up his chainsaw. Face me, he yelled as he sliced at the screen with his chainsaw like a maniac. Lelouch, come here so I can look into your mind. I'll cut that fancy mask off your face and deliver your head to Megatron. You liar. Mao, you've lost. The screens had been cut to pieces as they fell apart right as the transmission ended. What are you talking about? I don't care. I'm gonna be with CC. Suddenly, Mao heard multiple thoughts in his head coming in all at once, all of which were closing in fast. Is that Lelouch? But he's too far away. Sounds, everywhere, all those voices. Hold it right there. Drop the weapon and surrender. Suddenly 3 police nightmares rolled onto the scene as at least 24 SWAT police officers with pistols and riot shields quickly came in to surround the shocked Mao. Even a helicopter shined a light on him. Remain where you are. Drop your weapon and raise your hands. The Black Knights, no, they're the police. But who contacted them? Mao was at a complete loss. This should have been impossible. An ambulance rolled up as well and came to a halt right next to CC. The back doors opened as a paramedic got down and picked up the green-haired immortal. However, once she saw his face, her eyes widened in shock. Lelouch, what are you doing here? Mao gasped as he heard CC say his name. It can't be. He was just at the Ark. He can't be here now. The paramedic, revealed to be Lelouch in disguise, turned to Mao with a knowing smirk. Are you that slow? Lelouch spoke in thoughts alone. That was all a recording I had fix-it set up. That's a lie. Mao exclaimed. You were talking to me. Answering me. Your thoughts are simple. Since you read minds, you've never resorted to cunning. Lelouch responded. Consider it payback for what you did to Shirley. You predicted every one of my answers. Mao questioned enraged. What? Why not sick Daddy Optimus on me? Where are your precious Autobots? One's right here. Lelouch gestured to the ambulance. Ratchet was all I ever needed. Oh, and if you really read my mind, you would see why I admire Optimus. A trolling grin formed on Lelouch's face. Simply put, a spoiled little man-child like you isn't worth his time and effort. That really grated on Mao's nerves. You little, he couldn't even think of a proper response. Don't think you've won. If the cops arrest me, I'll be out in a heartbeat. Mao then heard all the thoughts of the cops all around him, calling him insane, and other private thoughts echoed in Mao's head. Shut up. Just stop taunting me. For once, I agree with Lelouch. Ratchet thought to himself, as he knew Mao couldn't hear him. Someone like this really isn't worth Optimus' time. Lelouch kept his smirk up. CC told us that you can't turn off your Geass, and your reach is erratic. If you don't concentrate, your range gets very short. So, you use the monitors to keep me distracted. Mao realized Lelouch's intent. Even so, I can still defeat you, I'll have you ruined. The moment you try, is the moment you die. Lelouch walked into Ratchet, still carrying CC. Lelouch, wait. If I talk to him, then I can get through. CC sounded almost desperate as he loaded her into the Autobot disguised as an ambulance. You think I'll die? Mao questioned. Listen cops. You know who that guy is. He's the terrorist you want. He's fire. The head police officer, under the influence of Lelouch's Geass, gave the order. This signaled all the cops to open fire and fill Mao full of holes until he dropped to the ground. Oh no. That was the last thing CC saw before Ratchet's door closed and he drove off. Mao grunted, his face filled with emptiness and despair as he saw the Autobot disguised as an ambulance drive away with CC. 0. Unbeknownst to anyone, the entire scenario was being observed by the Decepticon mini-con known as Laserbeak that continued to circle the air. The Nemesis. Soundwave had projected the footage from Laserbeak onto the bridge's main screen as Megatron and Knockout watched it all play out. They could not see Zero's face when he was on the monitor, nor could they hear the name Mao was spouting out. Megatron sighed as he shook his head. Disappointing. That guy was a few wrenches short of a complete toolbox. Knockout commented. Still, we learned a bit more about Geass, so it wasn't a complete loss. But it would have been nice if we learned Zero's true identity. Indeed. Megatron responded as he carried a knowing expression on his face. The Ark. Ratchet had returned to the Ark with Lelouch and CC, where Optimus and Fix-It were waiting for them on the bridge. I've just informed all Black Knight personnel as well as the other bots that Mao has been dealt with. Everyone should be returning soon. Fix-It informed. Thank you, Fix-It. Ratchet nodded as he and Optimus looked to Lelouch and CC as the two stood on the catwalk to be on equal level with the two Autobots present. Mao was only 6 years old when I made my contract with him. CC began as Lelouch, Optimus, Ratchet, and Fix-It listened. He was an orphan, who'd never known the love of a parent, he couldn't read or write, and he knew nothing of good and evil. When I gave the Geass power to Mao, it isolated him. In his mind, I became his only friend, and his lover. Though I was still a perfect stranger. I'm the only one he even thought of as human, I was Mao's entire world. Then why did you leave him? Lelouch asked. I suppose, I was afraid. CC confessed. I had felt connections with others before him, and I've lost every single one. I didn't want to feel like that again. That is a pain and a fear that everyone present has experienced at some point in their lives, including myself. Optimus said. However, if you allow yourself to form connections and bonds with others, you could be surprised at what you find. You do not have to be alone, however if you still wish to leave, we will respect your choice. But if you choose to stay, then know that you are no longer alone. CC wasn't sure what to say. Despite knowing only bits and pieces of her past, as well as some of her mistakes, even those that could harm them, and yet the Autobots and even Lelouch were still willing to accept her. Sarah, I promise I won't let my Geass destroy me. Lelouch told her, while also surprising her that he addressed her by her real name. I'll find a way to control it, if I can't do it alone, then I know I have help. Not just with the Autobots, but you as well. I trust you, and I need you. As Optimus told you, you can leave if you want but, I'd prefer if you stay. She turned to Lelouch with a hopeful expression in her eyes. You, really want me to stay? Yes. Lelouch told her without even a hint of hesitation in his voice. Optimus looked towards Lelouch with a small smile, proud of how honest he was being with himself and how much he was starting to open to others, even those with a flawed past, and give them a second chance. Sarah had an honest smile on her face. Very well, I'll stay. She told him, causing Lelouch to smile as even Optimus and Fix-It both smiled, while Ratchet just simply nodded in approval. And, seeing as to all the trouble you went to for me, there's something I need to tell you. That other one like me that I mentioned before, the one named VV, his real name is Victor Z. Britannia, the twin brother of Charles Z. Britannia. Lelouch couldn't contain his gasp as even Optimus, Ratchet, and Fix-It were beyond stunned. He's your uncle, Lelouch. Pendragon. It was unusual for there to be no one else in the throne room of Charles Z. Britannia, aside from the Emperor himself. Normally there would be nobles, or other people of prestigious backgrounds, but no. It was only the current Emperor of Britannia, along with a pair of bodyguards standing by his side as he sat on his throne. The Emperor looked to the other end of the massive chambers as the door opened as 4 individuals entered the room and began to walk toward the throne. All 4 of them wore white clothes with black gloves and boots, but each of them had a differently colored robes on over their uniforms and were rather young. One was a teenage boy with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a dark green robe with a golden Britannian crest stitched into it. On his right was a pre-teen girl with an emotionless expression on her face, light pink hair and red eyes, and a dark pink robe over her uniform. On her right was a young woman, clearly the oldest present, light gray hair and blue eyes, with a purple robe over her own uniform. Finally, a teenage girl, long amber hair and blue eyes, with a light green robe of her own. Your Majesty, they all said at the same time as they kneeled before the Emperor, who began to address them all. Gino Weinberg, Knight of 3, Anya Alstrheim, Knight of 6, Nonet Enneagram, Knight of 9, and Monica Khrushchevsky, Knight of 12. I trust you are aware of the situation in Area 11. Yeah, a bunch of giant robots are tearing things up down there. Gino said with an excited smile. They are causing problems and need to be dealt with as soon as possible. Anya said almost robotically. Indeed. Charles Z. Britannia confirmed. You are to be deployed to Area 11 immediately, to assist Cornelia in destroying these vile machines, and these Black Knight associates. As you wish, Your Majesty. Monica replied. This should be fun. Gino thought to himself. And what of Zero, Your Highness? Are these Decepticons we've been told about? Nonette asked. You are to assist the Decepticons as well, they will act as your allies. Charles explained. In addition, you are being placed under Megatron's direct command. Understood. Anya said in the same emotionless tone. As for Zero, you are to bring him to me alive. Charles instructed, much to the surprise of Monica and Nonette. Alive, Your Highness. Monica wanted to be sure she heard her emperor correctly. Yes, alive. Is there a reason you want to bring a famous terrorist alive right to your doorstep? Gino asked. If you needed to know, I would have told you. Charles said with narrowed eyes, indicating this wasn't up for discussion. All 4 of the Knights of the Round present bowed their heads in response. You are dismissed, with the exception of the Knight of 9, I must speak with you privately. Nonette was somewhat surprised but acknowledged his request. As you wish. She stood up just as Gino, Anya, and Monica turned around and began to walk away. Once they were out of the throne room, or at least outside hearing range, Charles spoke. I'll get right to the point, Lady Enneagram, Kaiserin von Britannia is alive. Nonette couldn't contain her gasp as her eyes widened and her pupils shook. He's, what? Alive? Are you certain, Your Highness? Indeed, though he may not remember his past. Charles confirmed. This mission is reserved solely for you, as you served under him as his knight all those years ago. You are to find Kaiserin and bring him to me. Nonette wasn't over the shock of this news but straightened herself out to bow. As you wish, Your Majesty. Is there anything else? No, you are dismissed. The Emperor allowed her to leave. The Knight of 9 turned around and left but did her best to contain a disgusted look on her face, even though her back was to him. Why would you want him alive? You didn't even seem to care when you heard he died. I don't know what it is you're planning, but I will find Kaiserin, and I will protect him, from these Autobots, from Zero, and even from you. And this is the end of part 10 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.